In this video, we have the host of Story Geeks on the channel. First time back at Disneyland in about 2 years. He's going to talk all about his trip, his thoughts. It's going to be a great show. Up next, OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. Today we're talking all about the parks, but more specifically, Jay's experience. Really curious to hear what he had to say about everything Disneyland Resort. It's been 2 years since he's been, so quite a bit has changed since then. So it'll be very interesting. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic panel. I'm going to start down here below with Mr. Family Man 23, Mr. Balls to the Wall. George, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You could also find me on the new podcast, A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Perfect. And diagonal to me right here is Mr. Vash Sky. And Vash, actually, I got a new banner on the bottom for you because you got a lot of titles now. So just to make things a little easier.
Oh, there. Yeah, right. It's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of. I even lose track of it myself, actually. But thank you so much, OG. I do appreciate it. Hey, I am happy to be back on. Happy to be back on with Jay. Man, it's been a long time since I've been with you. So this is particularly exciting. Thank you so much for having me on. If you guys want to follow me, go ahead and do so right down there at Vash Sky, just like it's spelled. Just type it in. Should pop up for all the. I know Jay loves this. For all the, as Christine Waitson's McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where you can see all of these amazing fellows that you see on screen with all of their respective shows, including my own Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
Perfect. So, Jay, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and plug your show here on the channel a little bit, and then after that, we'll dive into your experience. Go ahead, brother.
Absolutely, yeah. So I am Jay Sherer, host of the Story Geeks podcast here on OG 55's YouTube channel. We dig deeper into really compelling stories. In fact, most likely our next one of the ones coming up soon, is going to be George's selection for a movie that we should tackle, Up. So definitely stay tuned with us for that. Up has one of the best sequences, I think, in film history in that movie. You can probably guess which one it is just by thinking about the film. But yeah, today is we're just going to talk a little bit more about my Disney trip. And I will say this as a hook to try and get everybody interested. The craziest thing that I've ever had happen to me at a hotel happened to me on this last trip. I'll tell you which hotel, and I'll tell you what happened. Coming up soon. You can find me out, by the way, on Twitter at Jay Sherer.
Perfect. And for the audience, we don't even know what this experience is. So we're learning in real time with all of you. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
We got to get him into the park, though.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
There you go.
There he is.
Perfect.
There he is. All right, Jay. So last weekend, Sunday, you get to your hotel. Take it away, brother.
Okay, so we and just to give a little bit of context to this trip, like you said, it's been 2 years since we've been to Disneyland. It's the first time I've been to Disneyland as a non-pass holder when passes were available to purchase in probably 12 years. So the time I went 2 years ago, they had not started selling passes yet. And so everybody was just on a per ticket basis, like back when they first opened after the pandemic.
Sure.
And then, so it's been 2 years since I've been to Disneyland. Everything is new. Like I have never experienced Genie Plus. I've never experienced Genie. I've like all these things are like brand new, right? Never been to Avengers campus. We'll talk about that. And so I'm the kind of person that when I'm researching a trip, I'm a spreadsheet guy. So I had a whole spreadsheet of like which hotel should I go to and why should I go to these hotels. I knew a couple things that are good to set up as a part of the trip. We went for 4 days. We went Monday through Thursday. We did start Sunday at the hotel. So we got there early on Sunday. There's another restaurant up in Fullerton. In fact, Disney, really big Disney fans will know. There's a restaurant up in Fullerton called The Cellar, one of my favorite restaurants that I've ever been to. One of the Imagineers behind Pirates of the Caribbean themed their underground restaurant. And so it's just a cool environment. Like it's expensive too, by the way. They didn't tell me how much my menu was because it was one of those like market price things. I got the bill and I was like, holy cow, what did I just do? But yeah, so we went to the parks Monday through Thursday. And then we did that on purpose because I've said this before on the show, but I'm still dealing with like long COVID vaccine injury type stuff. So we didn't want to like try to cram everything in like 2 days. We want to take it a little bit easier. So get a place near the parks where it's an easy walk, not a far walk. I didn't want to walk like over a mile to get to the park. So we stayed at the Howard Johnson in Anaheim, the Hojo over in Anaheim. Recommended to me by a friend of the show, one of my really good friends, Josh Taylor. He's like, look, this is a good place to stay. I know other people have stayed there. We show up on Sunday to check in, and I would have said that we got there about 4:30, right? My dad lives about, we were staying with my dad beforehand. He lives about an hour from the parks, 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic. This is Super Bowl Sunday, by the way. So we didn't watch the Super Bowl. We skipped out on the Super Bowl entirely. And we drove up to the Howard Johnson, and immediate experience was that multiple people were trying to check in, and the front desk staff were actually super cool. I really liked the front desk staff. They were very friendly. They were very nice. They wanted to like expedite the process, but they did seem pretty new. I can't say that they were for sure, but they just seemed like they might have been pretty new. And that probably leads into this crazy experience that I've never had happen before. So we check in. She gives us our room number, and she says this is one thing people should be aware of too. I had thought that every single room in the Howard Johnson had been renovated because they'd been promoting that the rooms had been renovated recently. Yeah. So I had thought that every single one of their rooms had been renovated, but when I got to the front desk, they were like, would you like to stay in one of our recently renovated rooms for an extra cost? And I was kind of like, oh, I thought all your rooms had been renovated. And they told me, they said, no, the room we have you in right now was renovated like back in like the late 1990s or late 1900s. She was so young that to her, I was like, the late 1900s was a long time ago. For me, it was like, I was when I was a kid. So I was like, oh, well, I booked this kind of because I wanted to stay in some of the renovated rooms. Like they seem pretty nice and stuff. So those were renovated in 2020. So I upgraded to, I think it was like $20 extra per night to upgrade to those rooms. Gave us our cards for the room, and this is where it gets crazy. So we go up to our room, we get into our room, we're putting all of our stuff away, and we have a dinner reservation to be at like in like a couple hours. So we're starting to get ready for going to our dinner reservation, and literally going through the process of getting dressed when we hear a family outside of our room, and they're starting to act like they're gonna come in. And I was like, oh, well, that's fine. Like they'll realize that their key doesn't work or whatever, and it'll be good. Their key works, dude. Like the key actually worked. And so fortunately, my wife had the foresight of putting the door stopper on. Mm-hmm. They had like a little door stopper. So she put that on. So I hear this kid do the key, and he like he opens the door, but it like, opens an inch and like clicks on the door stopper. And I'm like, holy cow, like they have a key to our room. Like I've never had this happen before in my entire life. Like the room is double booked essentially, right? So I immediately go to the door and I'm like, oh, sorry, there's people in here. And then I opened the door and they were like, of course, they're mortified because like, can you imagine being them? Like that's almost even worse to a certain degree, And they're like really apologetic. They're like, oh, we're so sorry. I'm like, oh no, it's totally fine. They must have just booked the same room because like how else does that happen? So I called down to the front desk and I was like, "Hey, we just had some people, you know, like try to come in. It's no big deal. It's fine. Like whatever." But and then the front desk person was like, "Oh yeah, well you're in room 2419, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm in room 2422. That's what you assigned us to. That's where we came in." And she was like, "Okay, when you move to the other room," I'm like, "We're already like we've used towels. Like I'm sorry, I can't move to another room. Like that would be crazy right now. No one else should be able to use this room. Like you'd have to clean it all over again. Like it would not be sanitary. Like
Of course.
Right.
And
like she literally has this other family that hasn't like settled in at all. Like
No.
the most common sense thing would be let's move the family that hasn't got settled in yet.
exactly.
Oh, come on,
exactly.
OG. That would be redundant. That's like having someone to pay more than 2 checks per dinner.
Well, the only thing I can assume is that maybe it's like 2 beds versus 1 bed or something like that, or maybe
No,
there's like
actually, no, because Jay, actually, a good friend of the channel, Minnie, actually told me about this when she went out with her husband. I believe it was like a month ago that she overheard a family that went through the same experience that you did, but at a different hotel, but in the same location.
No way. That's
Yes.
so crazy.
So it's something like with the Anaheim hotels or something. I don't
It's in the water.
they were really, really hurt by the shutdown, as one could imagine. They probably had to, lay off people, and they probably have staff retention issues. Because, like, the last time I went to the Hojo, I had a fantastic time. Got a view of like the Matterhorn and monorail. It was like amazing. It was almost like staying on property, right? Really enjoyed my accommodations. That was some years ago, though. Yikes, man! That's a terrible
crazy.
experience.
Yeah, that's wild.
So what happens?
I thought about complaining about it, but I was like, you know what? The people were cool about it. Everyone's cool about it. And the front, like I said, the front desk staff was pretty cool about it. This is where it gets to be a little bit of a bummer, though. So we go to our dinner reservation. We get back, and the keys don't work anymore. So obviously, and by the way, the manager did come up and knock on the door and was like, "Is everything cool? Like, is everything fine?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." That was before we left. We get back and the keys don't work, which is a huge bummer because they let us in the building but didn't let us in our room. So we went all the way up to the top floor. They asked me if I wanted the top floor or what floor I wanted, and I wanted the top floor so that we didn't have, it's a family hotel, so there's going to be kids running around. Sure. Top floor is always good, so you don't get a lot of noise. So we had to go, we got back home from our dinner reservation, had to go all the way back down to the ground floor, all the way back over to the lobby, which is not close. We were at the back tower.
No.
And again, really nice, friendly kid working the front desk. I was like, my card doesn't work anymore. But in the back of your head, you're thinking like, well, is this clear in their system? Because like, I don't want to go to bed and then someone's trying to get in my door later on tonight,
Right.
It's so awkward. It's such an awkward situation. So that was that would probably be my only negative experience with the Howard Johnson. Everything else seemed to work out pretty well. Did not take advantage of the pool or anything because we were spending too much time in the park. So
right.
We did not have the view, Dre, that you just described. We had a view of basically the pool area, and on the other side, if we opened our front door, it was looking out into the 5 freeway. So like, nothing super super cool there. There were no fireworks that whole week except for on Sunday night, which I wish I had thought of because they started going off when we were trying to get the key card situation figured out. And we could have just stopped in the courtyard and watched them. But we were thinking like, we're tired. Like, this is annoying. Like, let's just go to our rooms, our room. And just for reference, we were staying in a room that did have 2 queen beds. So my wife and I didn't even sleep in the same bed because we were like, well, this is kind of small beds. Like my wife's 5'11", I'm 5'10.5". So like there's not quite enough space there. So we ended up, it was fine. Like the rooms are decorated. It's super awesome. There's a really cool Disney artist who does like, can't remember the guy's name. Yeah, I believe it's a guy. I can't say it. Might even be a lady, but they do like mid-century modern Disney art, and
Yeah.
some of that's on the walls, and it is phenomenal. Like it's just great.
It's about as
Which was
close
really
to staying on property without staying on property as you can find, because they kind of really lean into the mid-century stuff. They lean into like that Tomorrowland almost aesthetic from the 1960s and so forth. I mean, it is really kind of cool, and I'm surprised they didn't refurbish all of the rooms. That's bizarre.
I'm surprised by that too. And honestly, like I'm going to get to recommendations. We'll get to recommendations by the end because I'm sure you guys will have some recommendations after I tell you what my experience was like.
Sure.
So we'll get to those so that people planning a trip. But just to give a spoiler alert, like I probably would not recommend staying there. Like my experience was not so, if they had said to me, hey, we're really sorry about that mistake. Like we're going to go ahead and waive the $20 a night upgrade fee. And it says everywhere in the rooms, like, we want a 5-star rating.
If I was with you, Jay, you would have got 3 nights free.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm not good at that stuff. So my wife and I we just let it slide and we just like, whatever. But yeah, very awkward. So craziest thing that's ever happened to me in a hotel. Like that was just nuts. Okay. So that was our Sunday night experience. It gets a little worse with Howard Johnson, actually. Because the next morning, so my wife and I, being that my wife has a chronic health condition as well. And that means that we're not like get up and get to the parks kind of people. Like we just don't have the capacity to do that. We wake up pretty slowly. And so, but as we're getting ready to leave, we're leaving about 10:30. I know a lot of people listening are gonna be like, you left your room at 10:30, you're wasting so much time. I'm like, yeah, but it is what it is, right?
No. We always say, wake up a little bit later, enjoy the night. Night is really when things pop off. So ain't no issue.
Well, I have a good story about that too, about the nighttime and what you can experience during the nighttime, which is awesome. So we wake up the next morning, and I purposely did not try and get a 7 a.m. virtual queue. So for those of you listening, you get to get a virtual queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway right now. There's no standby line. Like it is only operating on virtual queue unless you want to pay $15 per person to like reserve a spot.
Right.
So I didn't want to wake up at 7 a.m. and get one, because what I didn't want to have happen was that I got into an early boarding group and then we couldn't get out the door fast enough. And then the boarding group, once they call that group, you have like an hour. And if you don't get there in that hour, that's it, man. Like you don't get to ride it for that day. Right. Yeah. So they do a 7 a.m. and they do a 1 p.m. and we were going to jump on the 1 p.m. So I did not get a reservation at the 7 a.m. For the virtual queue. So as we're leaving the hotel, my wife had put her purse in the hotel safe. And I had put these AirPods that I'm wearing, I had put them in the hotel safe. We didn't have a lot of valuable stuff, but we just put a couple of things in the safe. Well, the safe stopped working and it was closed, and we didn't know it until she went to get her sunglasses, because she's like, oh, I need my sunglasses before we leave. And the safe was just flashing like whatever it was, opened or whatever it said, but it wasn't open and we couldn't get it open. So we had to call the front desk again and be like, hey, our safe is like not opening to get our valuables out. And then it was taking quite a bit of time for them to send somebody up. And meanwhile, like now we're like really getting worried because we did wake up slow. That was our choice. But now it's taking extended time for us to get out the door, which is a real bummer. So I kept messing with the safe and just typing in random stuff. I was literally doing research on like how to crack a hotel safe. So
oh my gosh! And real quick, Jay, real quick, not to interrupt you.
Yeah,
this hotel put you through it. I mean, they put you through it. The fact that they didn't offer any kind of like, hey, we're gonna waive this fee, or hey, we're gonna waive that fee, or hey, you want to stay an extra night, is like malpractice. It's shocking to me that the stuff you went through and they didn't even offer that. That's wild.
I tell OG all the time. I mean, those Harbor Boulevard, hotels kind of become exploitative, which is why we kind of stay a little bit out. We actually prefer the Aries Orange, just because it's free breakfast, no fees, like free Wi-Fi, free parking, no resort fee, all that kind of stuff, and they're super nice. And it's done to a degree that's like it's nice. Rooms are huge and stuff like that, and if you can take like maybe $25 it is to park at or $30 to park at Disneyland Resort each day, There's also a public transportation if you want to use that option. But if you can take that and stay a little bit out, man, you'd be so much better off. Just just because of the amount of amenities they include, and you're kind of staying away. Whereas, man, I've just heard some bad stories about the stuff near Harbor recently, and it's really, really discouraging. So anyway, you got the safe open though.
I got it open by myself, which was cool because then we could leave. And so the gentleman who was going to fix the safe got up there right as we were deciding to leave. So I was able to tell him like, hey, we're going to leave, but like the safe's still messed up or whatever. Which, you're leaving your valuables in the room and hopefully nobody else has a key card that they can get in. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of wild, but I probably should send him an email. Now that you guys are reinforcing that that's no good, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I should send him an email. So we got off to Disneyland at about 11. Now that matters for that day because of what's going to happen later on.
Sure.
We were very much not into trying to pay extra for all of these extra rides. Like you can pay for Rise, you can pay for Mickey and Minnie's, you can pay for over in DCA, you can pay for Radiator Springs Racers. We were, like Rise of the Resistance, that would be an extra $50, $25 per ticket for us to get on Rise. And so we were like, man, that's no good. So here was what the bummer was. Rise and Mickey and Minnie's kept going down all day long on Monday. Like just kept going down. Every time we went to go in the standby line, down. And so just so everybody knows too, like I had a great time, and Tuesday through Thursday, you're going to hear me be much more positive, but my Sunday and Monday were pretty negative. And there are some things that we should talk about why that happened, because I think that they are things that you guys have talked about on the show before. They're operational things that are park management issues. And so don't worry, I'm not going to just be Mr. Negative. Like I had a bad time. I had a fantastic time, but it was later in the week. Monday was a little rough. So, and the reason I say that is because if I had the experience we had on Monday, which I'll explain in a minute, and I had not had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I would be coming back to you guys being like, I don't think I'm going to go to Disney again for a while till they figure stuff out, because this was a shitty experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we get to the park. The first thing we had Genie Plus, which I highly recommend to any vacationers. We had just to give you a feel for crowds. I would say the crowds were it was medium busy. One thing that I do need to note was this was the Monday where Disneyland was hosting the Super Bowl parade. And the reason that's important is because I think it affected operations negatively. I don't think that they put any more staff or any more cast members. I could be wrong about this. It just seems to me like they did not up the number of cast members after announcing that, but they definitely upped the number of guests because pass holders came if they were able to get or even people paying a ticket to go see Mahomes. Like they were all wearing their gear and they showed up. And so it was more crowded. So we got there and we went on, I believe we got a, part of the thing with my long COVID vaccine injury stuff is that I sometimes get dizzy on stuff. So I was trying to be careful about what I would go on, but we were able to get a lightning lane for Thunder Mountain right away. Did great with Thunder Mountain. Didn't get dizzy. It was fantastic. I love Thunder Mountain. It was phenomenal. And then we had thought about eating at Jolly Holiday and putting in a mobile order earlier, but we didn't. And that was fine. Like we weren't complaining about that, but after Thunder, we were like, we should go over and get some food. So let's go to Jolly Holiday and get some food. And the reason I bring this up is because Jolly Holiday obviously is on the parade route. So people were already starting to get busy around there. Right. And the mobile order time wasn't until pretty late, like another hour or so, but we were pretty hungry. So we decided to wait in line. Took about 25 minutes, I would say, to wait in line. Not too bad. Again, our choice. And I got the birria, I guess I would say, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, sandwich. And my wife got the grilled cheese and tomato soup combo. And I will just say this, that grilled cheese and tomato soup combo that is a winner, dude. Like that
I
is
love that.
so good. Like if you have not had
Love
that
it.
before, like it is worth it. My wife finished hers and she still had some of the sauce left. I'm like, can I have the sauce? Because I want that stuff is amazing. The soup.
It's
amazing.
funny. It's funny you mentioned that, Jay. I am such like a kids menu kind of guy, man. Like that's the kind of stuff I go right to, like the chicken tenders and the grilled cheeses. Oh, and you're right. At Jolly Holiday, it's fantastic. Go ahead though. I do apologize.
Fantastic. No. I want you guys to interrupt me because I want to hear your questions and your comments.
Sure.
But so the mobile order stuff, I will say like that didn't really annoy me, but you're gonna hear how it got worse later because it was just like, okay, well we'll wait in line then for this food. We did some Fantasyland rides. We got a lightning lane for Space Mountain, no problem. Again, Genie Plus was working fantastic. I recommend that to anybody. Like maybe on a crowded day where everybody buys it, maybe that gets worse. But on a medium crowded day like we were in, it was phenomenal. Like
You're flying.
Yeah, we're just flying through everything, and it's like perfect. So do Fantasyland rides. That goes cool. Everything goes well with that. I don't remember exactly what other. Oh, so here it goes. At 1:00, while we're in line for Jolly Holiday, Jessica, my wife, goes, okay, I'm gonna do I'm gonna get a virtual queue because the 1:00 day is coming up, or the time frame's coming up. So we got a backup queue. We got a backup queue for Mickey and Minnie's. We're like, that's awesome. Had dinner reservations from months earlier at Carnation Cafe. Met my former co-host of the Story Geeks podcast in downtown Disney, Daryl Smith, and his family. So we got to hang out with them for a little bit. We had Salt and Straw. Always love Salt and Straw. It's phenomenal. Get back into the. So we had the dinner reservation, so we knew we were going to have to leave at about 8:15 to get over to Carnation Cafe. Mm-hmm. Well, Jessica turns to me and goes, "Oh, we're getting called into the virtual queue right now for Mickey and Minnie's." And I go, "Oh, then we better go over to Carnation Cafe and see if we can get like our reservation like postponed a little bit or something." So let's go do that. And just for everyone out there who doesn't know this, Disney will charge you for a missed reservation. So if you just leave your reservation and go, "Oh, I'm going to go on a ride," and you don't tell them anything, they will charge you. I had known that already from being a pass holder. So
now it's interesting. Ray. It's interesting that you had the idea of trying to move your reservation, because I would have said, well, and usually they're pretty lenient on this. You can go up to the Mickey and Minnie's Railway guys, and as long as you have it screenshotted or you have some proof, be like, hey, our dinner reservation came up right when this happened. Obviously, I'm not going to pay $10, a person not to actually go there. This occurred, and they'll be like, oh yeah, come on, that kind of thing. They're a little bit more amenable. Whereas if you go to the restaurant and try to move it, now it gets a little dicey, which is very interesting.
Now,
but go ahead, Jay.
Before you continue, now at Walt Disney World, you can kind of maneuver either way, because depending on the cast member, you can pretty much get away with it whether you ask to bump up your reservation or the attraction. Now with Disneyland, it's a little bit more of a stickler because they charge you if you don't show up. Or with Walt Disney World, they kind of have a like a type of system where they won't automatically charge you if you approach ahead of time. If it doesn't go past your time.
Now remember, George, think about how many restaurants are on Walt Disney World property. Disneyland, one of the most populated theme parks on Earth, top 3, right? Only has 4 sit-down restaurants, and that's why they're such sticklers.
That's so crazy.
It's ridiculous. But Jay, go ahead. How'd it go?
Yeah. Well, so this is where the night goes south. And by the way, we also had a It's a Small World lightning lane earlier as well. So we did get to do 3 rides with lightning lanes, and we did get to do a couple of Fantasyland rides as well. And we did do the Disneyland Railroad, which is always awesome, and I always recommend that because I love that ride.
Of course.
Okay, so we go to Carnation Cafe, and I go, hey, we have a dinner reservation starting basically right now, but we also got called over to Mickey and Minnie's. So can we just bump our reservation back a little bit and go ride that real quick? And they go, well, I'm sorry, but we close at 9 tonight. So you can't have your reservation bumped, but we can just cancel your reservation. You won't have to pay anything. Don't worry about it. And I should have had like a red flag go off in my head, like if they're closing at 9, like what else is going to close at 9? But like I didn't think about it because I was trying to get to Mickey and Minnie's. So we're like, oh, that's great. And the cast members at the Carnation Cafe were phenomenal. Like the way that they handled it was great. Like it was fantastic.
Oh, but Toontown closes at 8.
Here's where it gets weird. Here's where it gets weird. We get to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and it has gone down again. So it was going to operate till 10. Yeah, it was going to operate till 10, but it had gone down. And so they were like, look, it's a pretty bad, because they'll tell you like this is a bad downtime, or like don't worry about it. It's going to be like 15 minutes. Like it's a bad one. Like we might not open again for the rest of the night, but if we are going to, it's going to be an hour. But it's already 8:45 by the time we get over there. So we're like, well, an hour. That's going to give us 15 minutes. Yeah, we had it. We had it in our hands.
Before you continue, Jay, this is where I have an issue with places that have to have a reservation for everything. When you have it so tight and you have to literally plan out your day from A to B to C to D to E.
Yes.
Before your day even begins. Mm-hmm. And any little hiccup, this is what you get. This is the outcome.
Exactly right.
Josh, using the services that you expect guests to use? I don't know if you are, Josh. I don't know. I mean, that's when you have to think about operations, and it's so intrusive that it really takes up a lot of your mental capacity, where you're just pulled out of the magic, and now we're thinking about this, and that, and the otherwise. It's not a great experience. OG, you can concur with this, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, actually, a similar situation actually happened with myself, my buddy Ryan, and our friend Theme Park Casual. So Theme Park Casual, he had virtual queue for Mickey and Minnie's. Mm-hmm. Ryan and I had Lightning Lane. So we're going into different lines, right? Mm-hmm. But our reservations or whatever, our times are the same. So we're walking up to the attraction at the same time. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing: Ryan and I had reservations because Casual was going to take off and go to Knott's. Sure. So Ryan and I had reservations for the Craftsman Grill over at the Grand Cali. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be fine with our reservation. Making it in time because we're doing Lightning Lane, so we're gonna get on that thing real fast and bone out. But Casual's stuck in the VQ line, so he's gonna be a while, right?
Yeah, he's gonna be a while,
and he was gonna leave after that. So like we're in this position where it's like, well, like Jay, like what you were saying, they charge you if you don't make your reservation, but I don't want to like just leave and not say goodbye to a buddy either, right? So It's like, what do we do? So we ride it and then we go get our food, but then like Casual's like stuck in this line by himself, and then like we don't say goodbye. It's kind of just this stuff kind of does create a lot of problems, and that was just one thing, and we worked it out, but Casual ended up just saying screw it, I'm not going to go on the ride. So it was fine.
George, but we had on one of our days for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, we had what I want to say 5 people, right? That we all got VQs, right?
Yeah.
And we. And it was like we had one more, and we didn't have VQ for that person. And it was like, is there any way? Like,
we tried,
of our
and
group,
we even tried in there,
and they were like, no exceptions. And it's like, dude, we have 5. Like most everybody got it. We're just looking for one more. Nope, can't do it. And it's, man, it's just. It's so frustrating that, OG, your experience, it's like, oh my God, like, that would just drive me nuts. And Jay, yours, I mean, that's, it's just, I wish there was a little bit more flexibility. It's so structured and it's so rigid, and it's just, it creates one of the worst experiences. OG, when we went to Universal, man, I mean, it just felt like, just walk around. I can just breathe. I could just go around. I could just do whatever, Whereas Disney, it's just
and honestly, and as you said, Vash, it's Demaro saying, I use these features all the time, and I do this, and it's like, I'm sorry, pardon my French. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because
No,
then
he
you would
doesn't.
be having the same type of thing. So,
Yeah,
Josh,
he
You are
doesn't.
forced to
pull-
use these things. They
pull
would
the
change.
diamond
They
out
would
of
be
your
fixed.
ass and get in line with the rest of us.
Pull a diamond out here. Yeah, no, you're right though, Dre. Then I'll get to you, Jay. But real quick, I just want to say, like, you're right about the Universal thing. Like, number one, you just going into that experience at Universal Hollywood is lesser stress because there's not a
Bag
whole lot.
check.
Not a whole lot of rides there. So
Yeah.
like, we got 4 rides. We got this. You know what I'm saying? No matter what happens, we got this. But Disneyland is like no other Disney park on the planet have the ride roster that Disneyland has. It's overwhelming.
Well,
It's
it's
wild.
actually funny that you fellas mentioned about Universal Hollywood because there's not too many rides. Where at Islands of Adventure at Universal Orlando does have a significant amount of rides, almost to the matching some of the Disney parks. And whether or not that you use the express line at Universal or not, the team members they know how to move you at Universal to get you on and off, so that line is consistently moving. So whether or not that you're paying the extra premium price for the express lane, or if you're just in the regular standby line, there's really not too much of a difference.
It's interesting. Did you see that they added Velocicoaster to Express Lane today and combined that with their new loading procedures, which kind of slows down operations as well? That line really bumped up there. Anyway, that's a whole.
Yeah,
we're geeking out there, Jay. I do apologize. So you lost your Carnation Cafe reservation, and you may have lost Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway as well. That has got to be frustrating.
And it gets worse. Now, before I tell you about how it gets worse, I do want to have a conversation with you guys after the day one experience, because one of the things I noticed in Jolly Holiday is that one of the managers was working. How do I know one of the managers was working? He was not in outfit. He was wearing a nice members only type jacket. I don't know what else you call it, and just a polo shirt, working alongside all of the cast members in costumes. Right?
Could be TDA.
So this is the reason I bring that up is because these are definitely operational issues. Now, let me throw out a really good thing, because I'm gonna talk about cast members holistically in a bit, and I want to hear your guys' take on this as well, since you guys have been recently. But I will say that at Mickey and Minnie's, when we were looking confused, one of the gentlemen working there said, like, "Hey, can I help you guys out?" And we did walk over to him. That's fantastic. Like, when there are confused people and a cast member says, like, "I think I can help you out. Just let me talk to you for a second."
Fantastic.
That's really, really good. So you can actually, I saw the message. You can hold off on the Mickey and Minnie photo because we do it another day. We did it another day.
Oh, we did it another day. Okay, we'll hold off then.
This is where it gets bad. This is where it gets really bad. So we are standing at Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and we go, well, we better order food because we didn't get food. Reservation is, by the time we were walk back to Carnation Cafe, that's a trek. I mean, that's another 5-10 minutes, right?
Oh, yes.
We know that they close at 9. I'm also not the kind of person, obviously, since I'm not complaining to the hotel, I'm also not the kind of person that's going to be like walking into a restaurant 15 minutes before it closes and think that that's just no problem, right? Like, I don't want to put that kind of burden on the cast members. I don't want you to have to work late because I misplanned my day, even though this was more their fault than my fault. Disney's fault than my fault. So my wife gets on mobile order and she goes, and by the way, my diet, I was cheating this week, but my diet is supposed to be like anti-inflammatory. So I can't eat too many crazy things, right?
Sure.
So I'm looking around like at what I can order. And she goes, how about French Market? I go, yeah, I think I can get one of the items at French Market. We order at French Market literally like at 8:45, right? So this is like it's just taking us 15 minutes.
Okay.
We walk over to French Market. My wife goes, we're here. And she gets a message that says, your order is no longer in our system. Please see a cast member.
Oh,
and we go, yeah. So I go, so she goes, what does that mean? And I go, I have no idea. And we should have known, being pass holders forever, like exactly where to go for French Market. But for whatever reason, we got confused enough that we were like, well, because there was no activity around the front of it, which obviously everyone now knows it was closed. But like, we didn't know that at the time. The only activity we saw was the Mint Julep Bar. There were no cast members standing outside. So when it says ask a cast member, there's no one to ask. So we walk around the back to the Mint Julep Bar, there's a line for the mint and julep bar that's probably 25 minutes deep. And she goes, okay, well, I'm just going to go up to the window and be like, hey, my order says see a cast member because it's canceled or whatever. And the cast member goes, is this an order for French Market? And she says, yes. And so the cast member says, well, you have to go around the corner or whatever she said. My wife took that as, because she said it in this was a very rushed cast member.
Sure.
Not the same place that you're not supposed to be asking her this question. There's no other cast members to ask this question to. This area is pretty dead at this point. So my wife thinks, she says, go stand in line. So my wife gets in the 25-minute line to talk to the guy about the order, the mint julep bar.
Oh no.
I'm like, I'm pretty tired at this point. I need to sit down for a little bit. I go sit down. I'm sitting down looking straight into French Market, and I'm like, French Market is for sure closed. Like, I can see it now. That's French Market. I don't know what line she's in. And I'm watching the cast member taking the orders, and he's directing people to the mint julep bar. I'm like, oh, she's in the wrong line. So I have to text her and be like, hey, you got to get out of that line because like you're not in the right place, and we're gonna wait here forever. So she gets out of the line. We walk around to the front of the French Market, and we can just see it's just totally closed. No cast members out there. Shut down. So now, what happened there that's wrong? And this is what I want to talk to you guys about in a minute, but let me just finish the story first, and then it'll complete the first day. But why you would let someone order 15 minutes before the restaurant is supposed to close is beyond insane.
Welcome to DoorDash. Welcome to DoorDash, Disney.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, because that's exactly what happens when you do like a mobile order with DoorDash, Uber Eats. They'll accept your order. And it'll say on the app, we accept your order. And then you're waiting 20 minutes. And then it says, sorry, the restaurant's closed. You can't get your order. Here's your refund.
Yeah. I'm a DoorDasher. That happens to me all the time. All the time.
Jay, if you were with me, I know for a fact and this has bothered me for a long time. Every single restaurant at Disneyland closes like by 8 or 9. Every single one outside of Galactic Grill, I think Alien Pizza Planet, Jolly Holiday, Plaza Inn. I think those are the only ones that actually stay open. Everything else closes.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Vash. When you just said because obviously you're a seasoned guest who goes.
Right.
Now think of the person. Think of that family that goes.
I know.
And they are relying because they say you have to use your phone for everything. So
family from Colorado.
I hate the fact that they close everything and then they don't tell you. And they don't like
with it being on the app, you're trusting the app is accurate. And that's where
should have been closing soon.
Yeah.
If you're not in the area, would not advise kind of thing.
Yeah.
Should have been that advisor. But Jake, sorry, go ahead.
No. So I was indignant as you guys are. We were very frustrated. We're like, let's jump on Pirates. We jumped on Pirates really quick because there was no wait.
Yeah.
I will say that Pirates is always a great ride, but also it looks like it's in need of some refurbishment. There were several of the things that weren't working.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, like the lady who says, "Carlos, are you chicken?" Like and she opens the door, closes the door. She was not working, so you could hear her voice, but she wasn't actually popping out.
That's strange.
I'm pretty sure that. I might be wrong about this, but did Johnny Depp's mouth at the end when he's sitting rocking in the chair, did his mouth used to move as a part of the animatronic as well?
I believe so. Yeah.
I believe so too. It was not moving, so all you got was him just like rocking in the chair, but you got the voice. There was one other one that I don't remember what it was, but there was one other thing that wasn't working.
And that's odd because when we went, actually, Vash and I were actually conning a lot of the things that was actually addressed and fixed. So that's actually surprising. That
when I went with casual, like the week after you guys went, we all went. It was working. So this is a new thing. That's wild.
I think the only thing I saw was, hey, kitty. That part was.
That guy was gone. Yes.
He was gone. Yeah.
Yes. He was gone. That was the other thing. We always call that guy Maurice because because when we were riding the ride, my wife goes, oh, there's the cat guy, Maurice. And I'm like, Maurice? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, he says, you're a feisty one, you be. And she's like, no, he says, you're a feisty one, Maurice. And I'm like, no, he doesn't say that. So that to us is the Maurice guy.
Well, that's Maurice now.
Yeah, it's Maurice from now on. but he was missing too. So there was a couple. So that was weird. Now, had we actually stopped to think about this, we should have just left and not gone on Pirates, because Downtown Disney, which this is new to me, because as a pass holder, I remember when the parks felt like they were more lively. I remember Downtown Disney like pretty much every night being open till like 11. Like it
like
was
an
rare
hour later
for it to
after
shut
the
down.
park.
Yeah. But every single restaurant besides Splitsville and the Uva bar were closed by 10. So we didn't want to walk into those places. By this time, it's about 9:45 by the time all this stuff happens. And so we had to book it all the way into Downtown Disney to Splitsville, which, by the way, fantastic server at Splitsville. And we had a really good meal at Splitsville too. But like we were like some of the last ones in there. Like it was just all like dead. So that was our Monday. And our Monday did not. So here's what I would like to talk to you guys about, because the rest of my trip is awesome. I have very few complaints about the rest of my trip, but one thing that was consistent is that the cast members seem very stressed, which to me is an operational problem from management. The fact that you have to use your phone for everything, I could not be more frustrated by that. I used to go as a pass holder all the time and just hang out and not have to use my phone. Like you literally have to be checking your phone all the time, especially if you have Genie Plus.
Yep.
So as much as I like Genie Plus, I hate and you can't get after anybody else using their phone and not paying attention, because you're like, literally you have to, like, so like people who are clogging up lanes and stuff, like they got to do it, you know? Right. Sorry, George.
Well, no, you're fine. And honestly, this even happens with us, like when the three of us are together and we go through the line, whether we have a lightning lane or a Genie Plus or what have you, and we're going through it and we're just talking and and Dre says, did you make another reservation? I'm like, oh no, I didn't. I got to grab my phone. And it's like, oh, I got to hurry up before we actually get on the vehicle. And it's like, and I'm sitting on the vehicle trying to get reception, trying to get the next. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, can we just enjoy something without having to stare at a screen?
Nope. No, you're like going back to it over and over again. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I was just going to say, I just watched a video beforehand, which was really helpful, from Provost Park Pass. So shout out to Provost Park Pass, Chris.
Yes.
Because he had given a breakdown of like how the Genie Plus reservations work. So I knew as soon as I use one, I get another one. But if I have one that's not for like past 2 hours, I got to wait 2 hours before I get one.
Correct.
But knowing that is important, because when you've paid for that service, you do want to, as soon as you use it, get another one right away, because otherwise you're going to have to wait for it 2 hours, and that's going to eat into your whole day. So like, I think that the principle there. I also wish that you I also wish it would tell you in the app that you've used your Genie Plus for a particular ride. I knew that because I'd watched the video, but my wife did not know that, and so she was like trying to book another one, and it was like, oh, it won't let us book it. It's like, well, because we already used one today for that particular ride, so you can't use it twice, right? For a ride. So that was, I will just say this, and I want to get your feedback on it.
Sure.
Operations seem stressed. That to me, as I watch the Orlando stuff go down with how that's being negotiated, and I think about our Disneyland cast members, who I have always had so much of an appreciation for,
right?
They seem overburdened. Now, this is a little bit of inside baseball. I'm not going to say who said this, but a friend of mine who works at the parks told me, he's a supervisor at the parks. He told me that 50% of his staff have worked there less than a year. That's this goes to, that's the problem. It's like they're not being trained and they're being stressed every day. Well, what does that mean? It means there's not enough of them and they don't have good training. So what has your guys' experience been with that? Is it pretty inconsistent, or?
You know, it's funny, Jay, because I've been talking to these guys about this for a long time. Like when Chapes was there as CEO, it was like 50-50, right? Like I would always call Dre and like, oh, I got like out of the 10 cast member interactions, 5 of them were like through the roof perfect 10s, and 5 of them were like -3s. You know, it was always just like extreme, you know?
Yeah.
When Iger came back, I think it was kind of like just like a psychological thing with the cast. Like they liked work. I think they liked working there more, knowing Chapek wasn't there. I think because the morale seemed way better. And overall, since then, I've had better experiences. Now we have had some issues. George and Vash, we had that Cafe Orleans situation where we're not gonna say her name. I don't want to put her out there like that. But the waitress would she was like hemming and hawing about like splitting our checks and like making it out like we're putting her through it, right?
I think her name was Jezebel. No, I'm joking.
But she was like really like making us almost feel guilty, right? Like guilt tripping us, like, oh man, this is such a hassle for us behind the scenes. We really can't do that. It's like, no, it's a hassle for you, but you know what? You make do with the guests, right? You make it happen, right? And bad experience with her, but for the most part, it's been better than it has been from like a year or so ago. But gentlemen, Dre, George, what do you guys? What's your assessment?
Go ahead. Go first, and I'll end.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely. I think one of the major issues is not only are they hiring people fresh to the notion of not training them properly, but they're hiring people that don't really know the Disney lingo. It's basically just to kind of fill the spots in, which Disney has to do, unfortunately, because they have to just get cast members in there to be able to do the job. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do the job well. And we totally have said this many times. Sometimes it doesn't start with the lower end cast member. It starts with management. If you don't have good management that is able to take the time to train the cast members properly, then they're pretty much just going to go out on a whim and figure out, hey, this is how I have to deal with it because I don't know anything other than that, And then, of course, you do have the cast members that are trained and they're just, fantastic. Maybe not having a bad day or what have you. But I feel that whether or not that Chapek or Iger was in, I felt like that there was a time that people just stopped caring, and that's where the quality kind of dipped. Now, do I feel that way with every single cast member? No. This is just my personal opinion. I feel like I get much better quality value out of the cast members at Walt Disney World than I do Disneyland. But then again, I go to Walt Disney World more often than I do Disneyland. But I do find some shining star moments, especially with our waiter, Oscar, who also was at Cafe Orleans. And talk about night and day compared to the woman. And Oscar was just phenomenal. And OG, help me out here, the cast member at Trader Sam's.
Steven, I believe.
Steven at Trader Sam's, that he was phenomenal. I mean, he worked with me literally from beginning to end for us to be able to get our seat, our table there. So there are cast members that do care, that do, want to have that notion. And honestly, it may just be a timing thing, but it feels like the cast member projection started going down after that one day of Disney premiered on Disney Plus. That's like when I started seeing it, honestly, when the pandy happened and the shutdown and everything just went on a complete reset. I felt like that's when it also resetted the cast members as well. Unfortunately, for the lack of commitment that they're used to putting in the Disney parks.
So I think the cast member thing, I think there was 4 big things that happened that kind of changed the culture at Disneyland Resort. And I've had discussions with people about this for a long, long time. Our source, mutual source, OG George, I'm talking about. 4 things happened. 1, you had the pandemic, which, they got rid of all of their cast members and they were forced to hire them back on, right? And then you had the kind of enlarging the pool of cast members from which they would actually seek talent from in the form of the Disney look. Now, I don't mean to cascade anybody in terms of, how, in terms of the tattoos that they get or the facial the facial hair they have, or I'm not gonna lambast huge demos. It's not what I do, right? But there was definitely a little bit more leniency, let's say, and not just look but attitude. right? Because they were just trying to fill bodies at that point, right? And then Bob Chapek says, well, we're going to implement a yield management strategy, a pretty aggressive one too. So instead of 4 cast members, maybe you have 1 doing 4 roles. Especially as they were starting out, you kind of had to do that at a certain point, but they institutionalized some of that so that now you have the cast members being paid the same. However, they were doing a lot more work and they were a little bit more stressed out. And then the 4th thing, well, let's say you had some cast members pushed out because of some managerial decisions regarding, let's say, certain COVID era policies, and I'll just leave it like that, right? So you had some really big things that really kind of changed the culture there. And Jay, when you talk about how they may have let more people in, but not necessarily have staffed up to the degree that they probably should, with Patrick Mahomes coming in and so forth, you might be right about that, because it seemed like on your particular day, cast members were a little bit more stressed than they had been. Look, when you have Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes coming in, I can understand why you want a little bit of a crowd there. They had a big filming camera out there. They really wanted a crowd, and maybe that caught up with them. Now, Jay, you talk about how you were at Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, at least the entrance to that portion of Toontown and so forth, and you went all the way to French Market. That must have not been an easy trek to go all the way over there and then be denied. That must have been, oh my goodness gracious. I do apologize, Jay.
All of that was frustrating. Now the good thing is, the rest of my trip, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to have one last complaint here, and then I'm going to be positive for ongoing. And my last point was, yeah, I know. There's probably something that comes up, but on a separate day when we were in DCA, just to give you a feel for us. So okay, let me compare and contrast here. We had some, like you said, OG, some amazing cast members. I'm very grateful to the cast members. The cast members, you make the magic happen. I want you to have a fantastic experience. I want you to make more money. And so I when I'm complaining about cast members, I'm not saying it's even their fault. I'm actually saying it's the operations of the park do not seem as fluent and as well oiled as they did in the late teens, when they felt very, 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 very on point with lots more guests coming through those gates.
Very polished. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah. So the one other thing I had was my wife did go on. I had a great experience with the Web Slingers cast members. My wife did go on Guardians of the Galaxy by herself because I didn't feel like I could do that. I thought I would get too dizzy. And she put the buckle over her purse, and the cast member shined the flashlight on her and said, "I will not start the ride until you get your purse out from under the buckle." She tried to get it over her head and couldn't do it. And then she's like, "I can't get it over my head." And he's like, "Then you're going to have to pull it through the buckle," which is, you know how tight those things get. So she's trying to do that. He's just standing there shining light. She's like, "Can you release the seatbelts?" He's like, "No, I will not release the seatbelts. You need to get it out."
Oh my God.
So she was embarrassed by this dude which by the way, I wasn't there, which then tells you something, because he's picking on a female who's by herself.
Well, that's definitely the implication there for sure.
Yeah, and the other 2 guests next to her were like, "What was that all about?" Like, so in other words, it wasn't just ruined for her, it was also ruined for the other guests. Now, feels like that was again a stressed out cast member, right?
That's like manner, man.
But that's not good. You don't want that. That's not what you want. Now, I had great experiences when I was on Web Slingers. So that was our Monday. So like the Sunday Monday was like very much like a reality check for us of like, oh, this is a different place than when you came here last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is not operating the same way. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is, and this is just in general, like George mentioned it with DoorDash, and I DoorDash all the time. I'm addicted to DoorDash.
yeah.
And there's constantly an issue with your order or them canceling after you waited an hour and stuff like that. That's the problem with implementing like all this new tech, the apps and all of the cell phone stuff, whether it's, at home stuff like with DoorDash or whether it's Disneyland, it always seems to lead to problems. It's always so much more easier and efficient to just, okay, I'm going to drive to McDonald's and I'm just going to order in person right? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes that's just a more efficient way to do it. And I think as a society in general, we're sort of moving in this app-based situation, and it just leads to problems. And we're seeing it now with Disneyland. I don't know. And look, I understand that's the future. I understand, but I think they need to maybe not get rid of it, because there are some good elements to it, like Genie Plus. And actually, for the most part, I've had some pretty good experiences with mobile ordering, like walk-up stuff, though. Nothing like with reservations and all that, but like with mobile ordering, like walking up and stuff. For me, I've had really good experiences, but I think they really need to mitigate some of this stuff. They got to get people off their phones, less reliant on technology, and just kind of go back a little bit to how it used to be. I'm not saying you had to go blast from the past like it's 1997 anymore, again, but they should at
now
least
you're speaking my language.
Right. I mean, I wish they would, but there's ways to mitigate it and rein it in. It's a little bit, I think. Go ahead, Dre.
Well, they a balance of, let's say, order windows, right? Because there were times when it was like 3 mobile order windows and then 1 actual physical walk-up window. Okay, well, we can balance that out a little bit. I understand it's going to take an extra cast member, but man, oh man, will that help with guest satisfaction? And if you're going to have this kind of, the mobile device usage or the IT be the backbone of all your operational procedures and all your interactivity between guests and whatever services that they want, pay for some good IT. This is ridiculous. I mean, I will rage against this until the dying of the night, because my goodness, it's ridiculous how much you have crashes, errors. Jay, that's a great feature that they could implement. Hey, let's cross off the list here if you've already gotten that Genie Plus for the day. I mean, there are so many things that they could do, and they just refuse to. And then you have people relying on these systems, whether it be actually signing up for Run Disney, for example, or signing up for Tron previews, or getting a mobile order or whatever, that people are kind of reliant on, and even your cast members are reliant on. Then those systems fail. That is more frustrating than anything, and they still haven't solved that problem, which, OG, to your point, would go into a smoother operation even if you didn't reduce anything.
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So it's frustrating. Yeah.
So that was the last of our major frustrations. Like I said, my wife had the one frustration later on, but for the most part, like that was that. Here's why I tell the story that way, because after Monday, it was like, if we only had one day at Disneyland, like that would have been a really negative day. Like our experience would have been overall, like I would be coming back and telling you guys, like, I don't even want to go to Disneyland again, because that was brutal. Thankfully, we had 3 more days, and all of those days were fantastic. So for the Tuesday, we went to DCA. First time I was ever in Avengers Campus. I think you guys have a photo of me and my wife in Avengers Campus, which was fun.
We do.
And there we are. There we are in Avengers Campus. By the way, we could not get the whole thing in the photos if we're covering up Avengers Campus, but we at least get the Avengers A in there. I had heard a lot of people complaining about Avengers Campus. I'd heard people complain that there weren't enough rides. I had heard people complain that it was too small of a land. I'm gonna be honest.
I think it's too small. I think Nintendo World, hold my beer.
Those some fighting words to some people, OG. But
I'm gonna say it. But
OG just went balls to the wall. Like I thought it was George for a minute.
Exactly.
But
go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
I'm just here to say that I thought, there's a picture of me messing around. I thought Avengers Campus was phenomenal. Like I enjoyed the hell out of Avengers Campus. We were able to see, the first thing we saw the Spider-Man show. Is it a little bit cheesy? Yes, it's a little bit cheesy, right? You're not watching a movie. You're watching real humans do stuff. Well, not all real humans. There's one animatronic that is phenomenal. But the way that they handle that show, the way that it's up, they've really learned something, because like how many times have you lined up for fireworks or something and then someone puts their kid on their shoulders and now you're what was a good place in line is now suddenly like a terrible place in line because you're behind someone and you can't see the castle. Well, having the Spider-Man show up here was great. We later on went to see the Doctor Strange show, and we went at nighttime, which is phenomenal. Go at nighttime if you can.
Absolutely,
The
go at night,
lights
yes.
all play. Josh Taylor was the one that was with us when we went to see that. He gave us that insight, and we went there. They sit everybody down in front of you, so there's no view problems. You can stand in the back or sit, and he's on a little bit of an elevated stage. The way that they've learned to do that with Avengers Campus, premium. Like, whoever operationally decided this is the way we're going to do shows there, they knew exactly what they were doing. All of the interactive elements are phenomenal. And this was my first time on Web Slingers. I do not know why people were hating on this ride so much. I do have one complaint about it. I said I was done with complaints, but I have a feedback for Disney that's maybe not a complaint, but I love the rides that have a little bit of gaming or competition to them, because for me, that's something that's like an inherent challenge that I want to do better at. Another shout out to Provost Park Pass. He has the best video on YouTube. Chris has the best video on YouTube on how to get a high score at Web Slingers.
Nice.
Watch that video if you want to go on Web Slingers. I went on Web Slingers 4 times, 2 times on the Tuesday, 2 times on the Thursday. We were back at DCA. I did a single rider line, and I got Genie Pluses. And every time that I rode, we waited in line 1 time with Josh Taylor from Modern Mouse. But every time I rode that ride, it was super fun. Every single time I learned how to score a little bit better. Every time I learned what interactive elements there were. In the Provost Park video was super helpful to that, and I just had a blast. So for me, experiencing a new ride like that and getting to go on it 4 times and not having like any major complications with that. By the way, single rider line, you're going to get on in like 10, 15 minutes, like on a day like the day I was there. So I know people are negative about it, but like, I know it's screens and people hate screens. Those screens are done remarkably well. There's no dizziness. There's no, like, it's just really well done.
Well, I'll say that. Oh, go ahead, OG.
Well, one more thing, and I'm sorry, this is the last.
You're fine.
But that's the issue that Dre and I had with the Transformers ride at Universal. Like, we were really queasy after that ride, and I was like really nauseous for like a couple hours after
Which
that.
was really weird.
I don't usually get like that with that ride, and I did. So
you were too, Dre?
Yeah. We were both kind of like a little bit unsettled, and then we had some food.
Right.
We were fine, but it was really weird. We were just, I think it was the glasses just kind of falling off and so forth. We were just a little bit queasy after that. Didn't expect it.
Didn't expect it. So that makes all the difference, Jay. That's why I bring that up, because you're talking about the quality of the 3D, and it matters, because if you don't have that,
it matters a lot. So to your point, I was worried about getting dizzy. I cannot even ride Star Wars without going into a cold sweat. So sorry, Star Tours.
Oh,
I can't ride Star Tours without going into a cold sweat. So so my body does not react well to dizziness. I could not ride back in the day at Knott's. There was that, what was it, Iron Reef or whatever it was, like some kind of, it was a 3D ride. I could not ride that one. Like, I'm very sensitive to those. I can't. The one that works really well for me is actually shout out to Spider-Man rides. I guess do really well with, but Spider-Man in Universal in Islands of Adventure, that one I do okay with too. So yeah, that's like a classic. Like, look, when you do this well, I don't have any problems with Midway Mania. Midway Mania works great too. So when you do it well, man, it just is really fun, and it's very escapist. And the fact that like they got Tom Holland to do this. I mean, I think we neglect the fact that like these are some of the biggest stars. Like, I've seen Rise and Rise and like in the obviously Daisy Ridley and all the actors, or most of the actors are in there. But the fact that they got Tom Holland to show up and do his little spiel, and he actually is dedicated to it. He's hilarious in it. He's getting a call. He's like, we better call Spider-Man, and his phone rings. Like, there's a lot of little gimmicks. Like, I know that those things are cheesy, but like the way that they managed that ride, I was like, I cannot see why so many people are complaining about this ride, because I just think this ride is super fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think one, when Avengers Campus opened, people are like, "Oh, what's the big ride attached to it?" And they put that onus on it, and it's like, "Oh, that's kind of a family ride, right?" And two, it's the Spider-Man name, and so that has certain expectations, right? You think Spider-Man in theme park. Before then, you thought IOA, right? That was the Spider-Man attraction. And now you go into this, and it's like, ooh, this is very similar to Toy Story Mania. What's going on? So I think that kind of had that thing, and people have been critical of it. I know I've been critical of it. George, OG, I think we've all been critical of it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you what, though, when we were there, George, I think you might remember this, when we were there for Oogie Boogie Bash, right? My brother was there, and his girlfriend was there. We were all riding it for the first time. We had to split up a little bit, and my folks went with 2 little boys. And those little boys were all into it, and I guess they had gone on like 7 or 10 times that day or whatever, and they were getting high scores, and they were doing all the special stuff.
And he was telling your mom like all the ins and outs, the secrets of how to get a high score and everything. Yeah,
exactly. Which, by the way, not super intuitive. You kind of have to watch some stuff to figure that stuff out. Which is, but they were really, really loving it. And then I kind of realized, I'm like, that's who it was for, wasn't it? It wasn't for e-ticket thrill junkie. It was for family, young kids who really like the franchise.
And I think, too, one of my major critical points for this attraction is I would love to have seen sort of like a Disney rendition of IOA's Spider-Man, where he's actually fighting Marvel villains than these little... what I like to call KB toy spider bots, because that's what they look like. They look like when there was a KB toy store, and they would have like this little section where they would have these little remote control gadgets and gadgets, and that's what they kind of. And it's like that's the big threat for Spider-Man. It's like, but I get it at the same time. But I would have just loved something just a little bit more edgy, just a little bit more.
It's just the wrong character. It should have been Ant-Man. Should have been. Maybe
Ant-Man would have been
cool.
Yeah, Ant-Man would have been great. But Jay, I wanted to ask you, being that you have now experienced Avengers Campus, and the 3 of us touched upon this a little bit during the Ant-Man review that we did. In comparison to Galaxy's Edge, what is your overall thoughts? Because for me, anyways, Avengers Campus, even though it has its flaws, and I do think it has room for major improvement, it needs to expand. It has to. The location of it is just not good for it, and Disney had to do what they had to do due to unforeseen circumstances. But it seems like there's still a lot going on in the land. Where with Galaxy's Edge, aesthetically, it looks breathtaking. It's beautiful. The rock work, the Millennium Falcon, what have you. But there's just no meat and potatoes within that land. Now that you have experienced Avengers Campus, do you share that same outlook towards it? Or do you still feel like Galaxy's Edge has that edge? No pun intended.
Yeah, that's a great question, George. One more thing on Spider-Man before I answer that question. I do resent the fact that you can get higher scores if you buy something. That is like this nickel and diming thing. Yeah, no, like I'm not into that. Like, please don't do that. Like, that aside, that's my last complaint.
I agree.
So great question, George. Here is my feeling. The first time you experience Galaxy's Edge, it is stunning. Now, if I could go and experience Galaxy's Edge, walk through Galaxy's Edge, see all the sights and sounds, get on Rise of the Resistance, and then leave, I would go, that first time experience is superior to your first time experience entering and doing the things in Avengers Campus. But this is a huge caveat. Avengers Campus does not have the walk-in thrill, right? That when you walk in to see Millennium Falcon, when you walk, like you said, George, the aesthetics are amazing, right? When you walk into that land, you're like, I'm in Star Wars. You don't have that walk-in experience in Avengers Campus at all. Like, you just like, oh, there's a building here. Like, it's not that special. It
Circuit
seems
City.
like they could do some more. yeah, exactly. I thought these went out of business. By the way, there's a whole group of young watchers who are like, Circuit City. What is that?
I know. Look it up, folks.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing that's tough with Marvel, with Marvel in the theme park environment, is that the special thing, the cool thing about Marvel are the characters, right? Because they exist in our world. It's kind of I mean, aside from a few properties like, Guardians, it's outer space, but for the most part, the core characters, Captain America, Iron Man, all of them, it's our world. So how do you craft a theme park land around that where it's like specifically Marvel? It's tough, So
Well,
it's definitely a challenge,
And the way that they did it is genius. So here's where I prefer Avengers Campus to Galaxy's Edge. Galaxy's Edge there's not really any shows. Like you have to go pay to build a lightsaber if you want a show. There's characters who interact with guests. I'm not a character interaction kind of guy, right? Like I'm just not into that as much, but I will watch the shows because the shows are usually funny. They're usually scripted. It's usually pretty cool. And so I think Avengers Campus has handled that really well. It's like you can go see these shows. We also will have walk around characters. I think that, I rode Web Slingers 4 times and did not get tired of it. So I must be like Trey, like you say, I have the mind of the 12-year-old. I'm good to go on that. But even having ridden Rise of the Resistance like 3 or 4 times now, and I love that ride. It is a technological marvel. It is not only just a technological marvel, it is a marvel of engineering of saying we're going to put you on basically 3 or 4 different rides in a row, and it's all one experience. It is unbelievable. But once you have experienced it, you know what it is. Like it's not changing. There's no difference. Yes, there are A and B. I know that there are A and B tracks, and you can see slightly different stuff, but there is something to, I think, being able to go into Avengers Campus. I mean, I don't know how many I've missed a bunch of shows because they had shows that have now gone on. Like they don't do those shows anymore, right?
Right.
They have new characters who appear all the time. Josh Taylor was telling me about seeing Moon Knight there and how cool that was, and seeing the M'Baku character when Black Panther came out. The planning around that of being this is Avengers Campus and therefore these people will show up and it's not awkward. The fact that Din Djarin is now walking through Galaxy's Edge is like, is he 80? I mean, like it's the timing on this is so odd now because the way you set up this land was assuming that you were going to make billion-dollar movies with the sequel trilogy every single time, and you were not going to have any issues with it. So, like, conceptually speaking, I can see what they were going with, but it just didn't work. And they need to kind of, I think what they're kind of realizing is, like, it didn't work. Now what do we do with it? So it's a really good question, George, because I find myself less frustrated with Avengers Campus, even though it's not as aesthetically pleasing, even though there's technically not quite as much to do there. Smuggler's Run. It's another ride that makes me dizzy and sick to my stomach. I don't like riding it, right? So like I love walking through the queue, but then once you get on the ride, it's like this ride kind of sucks. Like it is supposed to be a game. It's not really a game. Everyone's going to basically accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish when you ride that ride. So yeah, I think Galaxy's Edge needs a new team of engineers to come in and go, what could we do to pluck this out of its current limitations and really make this something a little bit more special? The way that they've conceptualized Avengers Campus, I think, kind of nails it. So it's sort of like awesome execution, but limited in scope. Really awesome scope, but limited in its experiences, right? Like it's just like two balancing acts there. So great question.
And it's interesting because they're like yin and yang, these two lands, right? So Galaxy's Edge, like you said, Jay, is aesthetically perfect almost, right? It's really immersive visually. Amazing. But there's no entertainment, there's no heart to it, right? It's kind of empty. It's like having a mansion, a $3 million mansion that's beautiful, but there's no furniture in the house, right? It just doesn't have that heart, right?
Or having a great steak, but no seasoning whatsoever.
right. And then you have Avengers Campus, which is like, okay, it's more of a modest house, but you have a nice family living there. They got the fireplace going, right?
Right.
It's got some heart to it, and there's characters. I mean, they already got Kang the Conqueror from the Ant-Man movie in the land already,
which is nuts. Right after we left, he was there the next day. Like it was nuts.
Crazy.
It's what they're doing at Avengers Campus is like really, really like it's exciting because it's like, ooh, they could bring that to Galaxy's Edge, and yet they still haven't. There was a plan at one point, right before the pandemic kicked off, that they were going to implement like they were going to change the timeline. They were going to have it based all around the kind of the Mandoverse, right? And you were going to have, Gina Carano's character walking around, right? And you're going to have, I can't remember his name at all, Apollo Creed's character. You know what I'm talking about, Jay?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have Din Djarin, and it was going to be, and then as new characters come out, they're going to do the Avengers Campus thing where they bring in Ahsoka, they bring in all this kind of stuff, and it was going to be phenomenal. But then those ideas got sidelined and so forth, and now with the Galactic Star Cruiser really kind of cementing that timeline and making it super, super rigid, which, by the way, that's not doing too well at all. I think they are realizing it, Jay. It's like, we gotta fix this. And it's so frustrating because they were going to have shows. They were going to have stunt shows. They were going to have, the reason it doesn't have music because they were going to have live entertainers and performers. They were going to have aliens walking around, droids, all these ambitious ideas that never came to fruition. So, OG said before, like I'll say now, it's just the best steak and it's the best looking house, but it's got no heart, it's got no seasoning. Whereas, Avengers Campus, I mean, it's so dynamic all the time. There's something new every single time you go in there, it seems like, because of how many shows are being released, how many characters they're introducing, and every single attraction is dynamic, right? So your time on Web Slingers will be slightly different because of how much interactivity there is, and the variable nature of Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, right? Where it's like, it's a different experience. And you just look at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and it's like captured at a moment in time, like literally. And it's like nothing changes, nothing happens, everything's the same all the time. And that's a really kind of unfortunate position. Now, I have heard that there are people like Ken Potrock, like Josh D'Amaro, they're recognizing that we need to update this, and there are moves to do that. Obviously, we got Din Djarin and Boba Fett and so forth. Was it Bo-Katan? Is that her?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Boba Fett's right-hand gal.
Yes.
Fennec Shand.
Fennec Shand, yes. Yeah, Bo-Katan's the other gal. Okay, but yeah, like, you get it, right? And that helps, but it doesn't get it over the finish line. Great canvas for which to paint, though. That's the frustrating thing.
And I think too, like, okay, so I mentioned the web slingers thing about buying the extra pieces, and that's kind of frustrating.
Right.
But like, when Galaxy's Edge opened, that was the signal to all of us that this is pre-Chapek, but this was the signal to all of us that the premium experience was going to cost you money. Because I watched YouTube videos of people building lightsabers, and they were crying. They were like, the experience of building a lightsaber is phenomenal. But guess what? You don't get that experience. It's not like the Doctor Strange show where anybody can walk in and watch that show.
Yeah.
You had to pay a bunch of money to access that show.
Yeah.
And I think that's
even just to see
part of the problem. Yeah. The part of the problem with Galaxy's Edge, and then the association of having the Star Cruiser there as well, is that was the introduction of, you're going to pay for premium experiences. I think Avengers Campus, despite the web slingers paying extra for web slingers, and by the way, you don't have to. It's just a little device you can put on your hands, and it makes you a little bit more accurate and whatnot. But it does not feel like you're being nickeled and dimed in that land. Like, you get to see the Spider-Man show. You get to see the characters walk around. You get to see the Doctor Strange show. You get to see Black Panther or Black Widow. All of those things were phenomenal, and it felt like a kind of a going back to the magic of entering a place, as opposed to, well, I don't get the magic unless I'm rich. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Galaxy's Edge feels like sometimes. So, last thing we did that day, on that Tuesday at DCA. Oh, the Lunar New Year food was really fun. We ate from most of the booths, and it was really, really good. Not super anti-inflammatory for my diet, so there's that. But it was, those booths can get a little bit backed. They can get a little bit, some of their food can kind of get backed up. It's quite a trick, because sometimes they run out of food and they have to restock, but then sometimes there's food sitting there for a while, and then it kind of feels like it's a little old. I would say we were on one of the last days of the festival, so the food did feel maybe a little bit on the old side, but it was not, I'm not complaining about it. It was really tasty.
Oh, when you said the food was backed up, I thought it was binding.
But yeah. No, it just was like seemed like it was old. Okay, so what else? Oh, we went to Craftsman Bar that night, And the staff at Craftsman Bar were, or the cast member there. We got there kind of late. They were going to shut down soon as well. They didn't have a table cleared because we added Josh Taylor at the last minute because we only had a reservation for 2. I didn't know he was going to be there, and he showed up. So we said, "Can we do this?" She found us a seat by a heater. It was freezing cold that night, and it was really windy. So for the fact that she did that was great. I still think Craftsman Bar is one of the best places to eat on property because you can get away from all the crowds. It does not feel heavy there. It feels very chill there.
That's great.
I've heard it's kind of a hot spot now that Cove Bar, or what was the Cove Bar, now has some operational issues where they're not having the bar section open, all kinds of stuff. Where do people go? I've heard Craftsman Bar, pretty good spot. So
And I'm telling you, the food there, I had it just a couple weeks ago now. The food there is fantastic. They got these nachos that are like, oh my God. And they give you a lot too. Did you have the nachos, Jay?
I did. It was a total cheat. I looked at my wife and I'm like, well, we could get the nachos. And I'm like, so it was definitely inflammatory, but they're delicious. I mean, they're amazing.
Good.
They are, there used to be in the 2012 era when Trader Sam's first opened and it was not known. That was the ultimate era of finding little Disney places to eat and little lounges that were not known yet. But as YouTube becomes more and more popular, as more and more people got passes, all of those things got blown out because it's like now we all know where they are. Yeah. Craftsman Bar still has, Dre, it's probably losing it a little bit, but for us when we got there, it was still that chill vibe. It was still pretty cool. It was not a lot of people around. Grand Californian still has the best restrooms on property.
Oh yes,
absolutely.
So full doors, baby.
Yeah,
if you need to take a dump, that's where you go.
That's right.
Well, I wasn't gonna say it, but
that's right.
I guess we're there.
There you go.
I don't know. I think OG kind of honed in some of my balls to the wall tonight. Like he
really did. He really did. But all of those things are true. Like it's just a cool environment. Now, I will say I did notice this is another operational. I'm sorry for another complaint, but I just remembered it because in the survey I filled out, I said a lot of the restrooms were not being cleaned fast enough.
Yeah.
And they were like there was water all over the surfaces and I have a lot of sympathy for the custodial staff that have to deal with that many people using those restrooms. That has got to be no fun. But as a guest, that's one of those things where it does make you feel slightly uncomfortable. When you go into a restroom that's not really clean, it's like, and I never had this happen before. Usually I'd go into a restroom at Disneyland and there was only when it was really busy would I find myself having to wait. But I found myself having to wait 3 or 4 or 5 times. And I was like, I'm really surprised that that this is not moving faster. And so, maybe it was the custodial staff couldn't get to it because it was too full or something. I don't know what it was, but
either way, it's a shitty job.
Yeah.
Exactly. Custodial cast members have been the trickiest to hire at Disneyland Resort. So I can just tell you right now, they just don't have the staff to, I don't know what the terminology would be, but turn those over as quickly as they usually do, and that's why you got to be choosy, right? Don't go New Orleans Square restrooms. Go to the ones on the outskirts because those are terrible.
And one thing that really is a pet peeve of mine, and this has nothing to do with Disney. This has to do with this dude taking a piss. But,
let's just do it. Let's just here we go.
Come on. But I've been sitting there like. There you go. Well, you're waiting in line, right? And then there's this dude at the stall. He's taking a piss, but he's on his phone. That dude stopped like 5 minutes ago, but he's still on his phone, like texting or doing whatever. And it's like holding up the whole line. That's an issue, and it happens a lot. I notice it a lot.
I don't know. That's some ingenious multitasking right there.
You gotta get those lightning lanes, man. Did you just have a kiosk? Yeah, exactly.
Kiosk right there at the.
That'd be great.
That's what they need.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
so Craftsman Bar is definitely a recommendation of mine. I love Craftsman Bar. So that was my second day at the parks. That was my I did wait for Incredicoaster, or not Incredicoaster. That was too intense for me. I couldn't ride that one. But I did wait for Radiator Springs Racers. I did not want to pay to ride Radiator Springs Racers. That line ballooned. So again, like operationally, we got in line and it said I believe it said 40 minutes. And then while we were in line, they're saying, if you're in line, your wait time is increased to 55 minutes. If you're in line, your wait time is increased to 75 minutes. And that was pretty frustrating because we were literally trying to meet up with Josh and we were stuck in line. Yeah, there we are. We're out in front of Radiator Springs getting ready to ride it. I'm repping my Colorado hat there.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
It's very apt and still as beautiful as the day it opened.
And you still had to
it's
wait that
gorgeous.
extra 55 minutes? You couldn't have just said that we're the family from Colorado? I mean, can we just get ahead of the line?
You're the family from Colorado. I'm the one that Josh Giamorro talks about.
That's right. Look at my hat. No, so here's the tip I have though. If you're gonna ride that ride, just ride single rider. Because like my wife and I got in that line and they announced the wait time is increasing. Single rider is only 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We should have left right then and there and got in single rider. We would have been done with it. It would have been over. You know, I know you don't get as cool of an on-ride photo because you're not with your party or whatever, but it is one of those rides where you're not going to be talking to your party while it's going on anyways. Like it's a full experience.
I think honestly that if you have the opportunity to do single rider, if you have a party and you've experienced this ride before with everyone and it's like one of the last alternatives rather than wait 2 hours in line. I've seen a lot of families do it, but actually I do love the backdrop of this photo. It's perfect. I mean, Disney, I mean, they couldn't have done it anywhere any better than what they did here. And OG, I think you would appreciate it because there's absolutely no sight lines to anything.
It's beautiful. There's no Comcast building. No, I'm kidding.
I had to still pinch myself because whenever I walk in there, I'm like, okay, I have to remember this wasn't here before. Like all this Zolt rock work was not here. You know, when this park opened, it almost seems like, oh yeah, we just opened this one side. It was always here. No, it's not. And the single rider thing. As long as you are waiting with the person that you're with, and you're good. I've always found the rides so immersive. Well, you're right, Jay. For sure. Go ahead, OG.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Now, this is the thing, though. This kind of shows how much DCA needs that Avengers e-ticket. The demand for Radiator Springs Racers is like through the roof.
Absolutely.
And they got to get another e-ticket in there to sort of pull people away from this thing a little bit. They got to get that e-ticket, and hopefully we hear something soon. And the Hyperion.
Yeah, the Hyperion, absolutely.
Even a parade too, but Hyperion for sure. You're right, OG. Got to get that Avengers e-ticket.
100%. In fact, one of the things I like about DCA is it does feel a little bit more chill because it does feel like you can accomplish a lot of the park in one day. But if you're comparing to Disneyland, dude, there's like half the things to do as there is in Disneyland. We wanted to see the new Lion King show at Disneyland, and we just were so booked with things to do that we just didn't get a chance to do that either. So and we had 2 full days at Disneyland. So anyway, so we had a really, really fun time. I would definitely recommend single rider there. Next day was Disneyland again. Now remember, we had not ridden Mickey and Minnie's, and we had not been on Rise of the Resistance because they were kept going down. So I woke up at 7. I entered the queue, went back to sleep. I woke up hour later, maybe hour and a half later. I look at my phone. Oh, it said your estimated arrival time is 12:45. I go, no problem. 12:45 is a lot of time. I'm good to go. We're gonna get on this ride. We're good. I look at my phone after I wake up again, and it says did not want to break down that day, and it says now your new arrival time is 10:45. And I go, whoa. That's 2 hours different.
Wow.
So now I'm thinking to myself, like, because my wife's sleeping in, again, she has a chronic health condition where she sleeps in. It's easier for her to sleep in than it is for her to go to bed early. I go, okay, well, now I got to think about whether or not I'm going to wake her up, but I'm not going to wake her up because I think we're good. I go into the bathroom to shave my head. I'm shaving my head. I look at the phone again, 10:15. Your boarding group is being called. You got to need to be here by 10:15. And I go, well, now I got to wake up my wife and rush her out the door because like I don't have an option. So wake up my wife, no time for coffee. So we are just looking it. And
Jay's out there. Jay runs out of the Hojo in his boxers. He's going.
yeah.
That's exactly
They
right.
told me I'm ready.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And that's basically how it felt in a way, like, because you just had to get through, like you had to get all the way through security. You had to line up and get through fortunately the lines were pretty short. Wednesday was a great day to go. Tuesday I still had a lingering crowd because it was Valentine's Day. Wednesday was a lot more chill, a lot more, and the rides were not breaking down. Phenomenal. Got to Mickey and Minnie's like with barely any time left to go. I mean, it was we were right there, right at the last minute almost. And we had been on Mickey and Minnie's before in Florida. And there we are right in front of the El Capitan Theater. And I just have to say, what a phenomenal place to put this ride. What a phenomenal line experience. What phenomenal theming to have throughout the line as an homage to all of the old cartoons and some of the new cartoons as well. Mickey through the ages and all the films he's been in. This might be my favorite ride of all time. I mean, like, I love Indy.
Wow.
This and Indy are like 1 and 2. Like I don't know, because first it has all the classic attributes of what you love about Disney. It has the classic characters. And the Imagineers, you can feel the love for what they were doing in this ride. And the pre-show is amazing. Our pre-show, actually, the guy actually said we could go again, like try to talk to somebody and go again. Well, this is maybe a minor training issue. The guy handled it really well, but the sound didn't come on in the pre-show. He sort of narrated it a little bit himself. He handled it really well. So shout out to that guy who was working in Theater 3. Because he kind of narrated it. He's like, oh no, looks like Goofy's like, like the train's messed up. Okay, no worries. And he said to us, I know that the audio didn't work, so just see another cast member as you exit and they can probably set you up with something. We didn't do that because we felt like we got on the ride and we had other things to do, so we didn't do that, although I would have loved to ride it again. But I cannot recommend this ride enough. I know some people don't really like this ride, and I think it's because there's an aspect to it that feels like it's related to the newer cartoons, which are controversial, right? Because there's the way that they do those cartoons is a little bit controversial. Right. I personally love those cartoons because the animation style is different, but it does feel like Mickey is old school Mickey. Like when Walt imagined Mickey, he was kind of a ne'er-do-well, kind of like a troublemaker in some ways.
Yeah, he was.
And then over time, they're like, let's pull that back because we want to make him kind of like this model citizen. Go ahead, Dre.
Well, to your point, Jay, that's what the creators were going for when they envisioned this version of Mickey. It's like, ooh, let's get away from corporate mascot and more character, more in tune with his origins. And I think it works in some aspects and doesn't work in others. Like there are better shorts than there are worse shorts. But I do kind of get where they were going there, even though it is very controversial, as we've said. OG in the chat, crack Mickey, right? Yeah. So
it's interesting too. Like, it's interesting too because I'm actually not like a super big fan of the shorts, but I think that the way they handled the animation in the ride is actually pretty spot on. Like my issue with the shorts. Like, I don't like the character designs, all that. That's cool, right? And I agree with you, fellas. Like, I like how it kind of brought fun back into Mickey Mouse. My only issue with the shorts is when they kind of get into this Ren and Stimpy mode, when they zoom in on the faces, and it's all crackly and like, right? That's a little too much for me for these characters. But when they're just doing their thing, like in that pre-show with the animation, they're throwing Pluto in the car, and Mickey and Minnie are just singing. And that's Mickey and Minnie right there. It's flawless. I love that. So the ride they really handled it perfectly. They kept the whimsy, all the whimsical parts of the animation of the show, and they left out all the like grotesque stuff, and it really worked out, I think, perfectly.
Weren't there some complaints about canine abuse or something?
That was a showcase. He was playing around.
Oh, okay.
Our friend Showcase, he said that It's like a PETA violation.
PETA, yeah,
called
called PETA, yeah.
I heard there was
funny.
something people were, I don't know, whatever. I do like Jay. I agree with you. The love that they imbued in this attraction, the care that they had for the characters, and it wasn't just kind of feels a little shoved in there in the Great Movie Ride spot, right? Whereas this custom venue, custom queue, and they had a lot of queue in which to work with because they had to get you back there and so forth. Just a wonderful, phenomenal use of that. Yeah, I mean, it almost is kind of like a modern version of Indiana Jones Adventure when you kind of think about it, and the challenges of getting a ride like that in there and so forth. It'll be a huge draw for Toontown for the years ahead.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I highly recommend you do it. The virtual queue drives me crazy. I kind of wish there was one of those things where if you really wanted to ride it, you'd wait 4 hours, but if you didn't really want to ride it, you wouldn't. But it is what it is. That's the way they're doing it. Can't say enough good things about that ride. We really enjoyed our time on it. And then after that, we did get to go on Rise of the Resistance because we refused to pay the $25, but we were able to wait in line. It was only a 45-minute line that day, which is really short for that ride. The one thing that bums me out about Rise of the Resistance right now, and this happened the last time I rode, or not, maybe not the last time I rode it. Maybe I was watching a video for it or something. But one of my favorite effects on that entire ride is no longer working, and it bums me out because
I know
the laser cannons firing.
Yep.
And then moving. Man, I love that effect so much. The fact that that's broken, it's just
and permanently.
bad.
Operationally, they will never restore that effect, at least right now, because it's just led to so many.
It's been Yeti-fied.
It's not broken. It's just that effect triggers a lot of downtime.
Yeah, because that one room with all that. With all that computing power going on, it's actually more complex than the original Star Tours. Just that one room, right? There's a lot of computation happening to ensure that you have distance between the laser cannons and so forth, that they're backing out, right? That they take the weight of your vehicle into account to move you and so forth. There's just a lot going on there, and just led to way too much downtime. So they've indefinitely deactivated it. Hopefully at a later date they can get it working, but I agree with you, Jay. It's one of my favorites, and to not see it working
and that's why I called it Yeti-fied, because technically when a lot of people say, oh, the Yeti's broken at Expedition Everest, the Yeti is not broken. It's actually still fully functional. The Imagineers just have him on off mode because any movement, it's cracking the platform that he's sitting on within the mountain itself. So it's like you have these elements that are kick-ass
disabled.
Yes, they're kick-ass like when they're operational, but it's like with any little minor tweaks, it could end up ruining the whole entire ride. So what do? You have to forgo.
The ice machine's still up there, right? For Indiana Jones Adventure, a lot of people don't know that it's still up there. It just has been deactivated because that's a problematic effect. So you just get. That's why I always say, I got to ride this thing like within 2 weeks before WDI hands it off to Ops, and Ops changes things. I need to ride this as it was intended.
Well, let's see when Indy reopens from its big refurb. Maybe we'll get some of that stuff back. Hopefully,
I know.
Fingers crossed.
Awesome.
Hopefully.
I was really bummed that it was refurb. Of course, I made the decision to go when it was going to be in refurb. But that is my other favorite ride. So, but we succeeded in getting on Mickey and Minnie's and on Rise of the Resistance. But again, it took us 2 full days. So that is a warning to those who really want to ride those. Did take us 2 full days.
That other family from Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. So that day we also got on, I believe we got on Haunted Mansion again. We ate at Bengal Barbecue for lunch, which I think is one of the best quick service restaurants on property.
So
it's
tasty.
so good. Yeah.
Those kebabs, dude.
Yeah.
Those kebabs are like,
and even the veggie kebab, like the way that they grill it is just fantastic. It's not inflammatory, so I can eat as much of it as I want. Right. I just loved it. It was fantastic. Got a few of the 100 treats that were also really good. There was a Valentine's treat. They took the gray stuff and just added hearts to it or something, like that was good. There was a tart that we got. There was like a chocolate caramel tart. Again, these are all cheats for me, but I was still participating a little bit in those. All really good stuff on that other day. Didn't get to do a couple of things that I wish we had been able to do, like didn't get on Jungle Cruise, didn't get on Pirates again. So that was a little bit of a bummer. Didn't get on Space Mountain again. But we did get on Splash Mountain. Had to do Splash Mountain because it's going away.
It's going away.
Yes.
And I am looking forward to Tiana's, but I will tell you that, like, look, there are stepping stones. I was talking about this with our good friend Aaliyah Aloha. There are stepping stones, like really big stepping stones, to get to a place where you would say something like, people who like Splash Mountain are inherently racist.
Right.
That like there are big stepping stones. That's a sentiment that's out there, but that sentiment is based off stories that most people haven't read, which is based off a movie which most people haven't seen. And by the time you actually get to Splash Mountain as a ride, like if you don't know any of those historical elements, Splash Mountain just has a really good story about like how to kind of escape from an environment that is hostile to you, and how that can be really sad and negative and overwhelming, but also how you can basically deal with bullies in a way that turns the tables on them, right?
Yeah.
And the music on it is like so phenomenal, and it was really fun. It's not necessarily one of my favorites because I do like to get wet, but not when it's in the winter. So I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to get on this. But I
soaked too.
Had to. It can get you really soaked.
Man,
I told these fellas when we last went out, I said, I know it's cold. It was like the coldest time I've ever been in a Disney park. But I said, no matter what the temperature is, you fellas could do what you want, but I have to get on Splash Mountain one last time. And they took the ice bucket challenge with me. So it was like
twice.
That's
awesome.
It's a great attraction. And you're absolutely right, Jay. There's a lot you have to go through to connect someone as being racist that likes the attraction. And a lot of the stuff that's problematic isn't in the, it's all animals in the interaction.
Correct.
And it's crazy. Go ahead.
That's what I mean by the stepping stones. It's like, yes, there were problems with the original stories and the portrayal of some of the characters.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand that there are some complexities related to Song of the South, right? I'm not going to make any major commentary on that because I haven't watched it in at least 20 years, if I've ever seen it at all. But by the time you get to the ride and you just assess the ride as a ride and its story as a story, those things are not there anymore. It's all legacy stuff that you're complaining about. So
yeah,
it's so far removed, and I it's come to accept. Okay, it's going to be Tiana's Bite Adventure. I just wish. Like, obviously we've had problems with the reasoning and so forth and all that, but man, the attraction Splash Mountain is in rough shape right now. It's really unfortunate to see. I understand they don't want to pay a dime, and I get it. Fiscally, makes sense. Probably responsible, but I don't know. It's unfortunate to see it in its last days in that condition. We could just hope for the best.
Yeah, and in terms of the retheme, I think Chapek has a statement for that.
Apologize for not being the ally that you needed me to be.
Needed you. That's for sure.
That's hilarious. I hadn't heard that drop yet. That's awesome. The other thing I'll say just really quickly in terms of judging rides is that before you get on a holier than thou horse, go watch the Mickey Mouse documentary that is literally on Disney Plus, because it covers the time when Mickey Mouse was in blackface. It shows it on the screen. Nobody's lining up to say that Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway shouldn't be a thing because Mickey one time wore blackface. I'm not saying that those things aren't problematic. Those things are problematic. They're a legacy thing that we definitely need to work through. We need to acknowledge, and we need to acknowledge it was bad. But when you start to associate people as being racist with something that they may have no context to, it is not fair. And if you like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and you didn't know that was a thing, what does that say about you at that point? Like you just be people in glass houses should not throw stones, right? Like, just be careful. So,
me and Dre and I did a video today actually on the culture war, and we were talking about how racist is thrown around so willy-nilly now. I mean, everything is racist and everything's woke. I mean, these terms mean nothing at this point anymore because it's like it's applied to everything, you know?
You know.
And it's crazy.
It's completely crazy. And culture keeps changing the terms on us. You know, when woke first came out, the Black community was saying, "Are you aware of the systems that exist? And are you aware of the history of those systems?" And then suddenly, woke got to be a lot of other progressive ideas. I use the term loosely, right? But I would say progressive ideas started going, "Oh, we want to be woke too," and they literally stole the term from the community. So, like, to me, I'm kind of like, man, it's just not. We're in a very confusing world, and we even need to define terms before we use them because it's ridiculous. So, anyways, I enjoyed Splash Mountain. I hope that no one accuses me of being racist, but somebody probably will. But I really enjoyed my last ride on Splash Mountain.
We're gonna have two comments. We're gonna say one person is gonna say you're racist, the next person is gonna say you're woke.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna be both.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, man.
What else did we do that day? Oh, so we went on some other rides and had a good time, but just for the sake of time, because you guys have been talking to me for a really long time. We did get to see Wondrous Journeys that night, which we had not gotten to see the other night.
Yes.
So, and just to give you a little bit of perspective about why Monday was so frustrating, is that we would have walked out of Carnation Cafe into Wondrous Journeys and had a perfect spot.
Oh,
right. So, like,
yes, you're right there.
Right there.
Yeah, the breakdown of that, like, so okay. So let me say a few things about. OG, you're one of the ones that told me you got to see Wondrous Journeys, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go see it. Let me just say that one of the coolest things I described this about Avengers Campus is that whoever did the projections, you guys know who it was. I think OG, you said you follow him on Twitter.
Christopher Nertz, yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Well, he did the music, composition, so forth. You had, I think, Jordan Peterson was the show director, Casey Wilkerson, all these people. And when you talk to them, they're gung-ho about animation and, putting stuff up on projections or providing an experience that really takes you into the life of an animator almost, but this animated journey, it is fantastic. Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
That's awesome. Well, and so I was just going to say, one of the things I love about it is that before, whenever they did a show, if you did not get a good view of the castle, the show was diminished in some way, shape, or form. You didn't see all of the things that occurred. What I love about this show is that you can literally be standing anywhere. And and if somebody puts their phone up on the left, you can just look over to the right, or vice versa, and you have a fantastic view of these projections. They nail it. They absolutely nail it with the Disney magic, which I'm going to compare and contrast to World of Color 1 in a minute. But Wondrous Journeys kills it. Like they work in Josh Taylor was telling me that they have worked in every animated character all the way up to what did he say? All the way up to so there you go. Like they're all in there.
All 62 animated films are represented in there.
Amazing. Like absolutely amazing. And the way that they add the uncolored cell animation, and then go to the full color. Yeah, the sketches from sketch to full cell, the song choices, the way that the story flows as to all of these characters went on Wondrous Journeys and we went with them. That is consistent throughout. I mean, like probably the best show at Disney at a time when Disney shows have been hit or miss. Probably the best one in a long while.
Yeah.
So.
And Jay, you've probably seen the sequence of the show, which I talked to these fellas. It's one of my personal favorites because it's the reiteration of what it actually means. It sums up everything. That closer to the end of the show, when Winnie the Pooh comes on, and he says, "Well, wait, can't we just go back to the beginning and do it all over again?"
And you're praying.
And he goes, well, Pooh, it's like it's just the turn of the page, and the next 100 years that he feels is going to be wondrous. So I felt like even though it was something that it's referring to how Winnie the Pooh would talk in the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh about turning the page, going to chapter 2, going to chapter 3, but it sums up everything of what we all experienced as Disney fans in the Disney community for the first 100 years, and I just love that. I love that.
I'll
anecdote.
argue it's the best show playing at the resort right now. Would anybody agree on that?
I'm gonna go balls to the wall. I'm gonna go balls to the wall.
I got it right.
There we go.
Go ahead.
I honestly, Wondrous Journeys in comparison right now is the best nighttime show at both resorts, Disneyland and Walt Disney World.
Yeah, I think so. I was telling Dre before these gentlemen saw it. I watched it on YouTube. I didn't even see it in person yet. I just watched it on YouTube, and they were at the parks. And I said, I texted George, I think, and I said, you guys, you got to stay for the show. It's probably, and this wasn't even in person yet. I just saw it on YouTube. I'm like, I think this is my favorite fireworks show they've ever done. I was telling George, you guys have to see it. They saw it. They called me and they were like, "Oh my god!"
We were
inundated with texts, right, George? Tell the story.
We were getting the text from OG. He was like, "Oh, I just watched Wonders," and I forget where we were. We were in either our hotel room, Dre, or I think we were in line for something. I can't remember.
We had this conversation several times. Downtown Disney was one of them.
Yeah. So we were getting like all these messages from OG, and he texted me and he said, "I just got done watching Wondrous Journeys on YouTube." He said, "Man, you guys, you have to see it in person." He said, he says, I don't tear up, but he said, with this, just watching it on YouTube, I teared up. And I like looked at it and I had to do like a double take. And I said to Dre, I said, OG just teared up with Wondrous Journeys, and Dre did like a full poop, like what? OG
on YouTube.
On YouTube. And
I was like, this is such a good show.
We were contemplating whether or not if we were going to do Wondrous Journeys or World of Color 1. And after we got that text from him, we were like, oh, it's a done deal. We have to see Wondrous
We gotta
Journeys.
we gotta do Wondrous Journeys. Also, too, like the wind could come in and that's it, right?
Yes.
And so it was like, okay, well, let's. It looks like Wondrous Journeys is going to be the one because we didn't really know. We heard World of Color 1 was good at that time anyway. We heard Wondrous Journeys was good. So it was like, which one do we choose? And it was like, okay, well, OG's having a very strong reaction to this. I know fireworks can get canceled. George, let's just put all our eggs in the basket here. Let's try to get a fireworks presentation.
And it was the best decision we made, honestly.
We didn't even attempt, basically, to get World of Color 1 on any subsequent day because it was we just all wanted to see it again and again.
Yeah, because we even talked about it afterwards. Dre said to me, "Do you want to see World of Color 1?" I'm like, "I'd rather see Wondrous Journeys again."
We're in this part. Let's go.
Yeah,
go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Can't say enough good things about the crew that put all that together. One last thing about my Disney day, and this is just a crazy fun thing that can happen, a kind of thing that can happen at Disneyland that is just completely bonkers. But we were sitting at Jolly Holiday for a moment, just kind of resting and eating some snacks. And I have a like a really weird ability to recognize people and people that I know or like celebrities in the park. In fact, one of the Ghost Adventures, I didn't even know what his name was. I'm like, that guy, I know that guy. And then I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's on a Ghost Adventures. And I look him up, I'm like, yeah, he is. But I saw my cousin, who I hadn't seen in 4 years, who's gonna move to the other side of the country in not that long, is walking with his son. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my cousin. And like, we got to hang out and talk to him for 15, 20 minutes. And that was a really special experience because everybody else I had planned to see, but him, he lives up in LA County and we weren't going to get up that far to be able to see everybody that we know up there. And so that was just really extra special moment where I got to hang out with my cousin at Disneyland.
Happiest place on earth, where James.
Exactly. It was cool. So that was my Wednesday. Wednesday went phenomenal. When everything worked out, all the things that didn't work out on Monday worked out on Wednesday. So again, better operational day for sure.
I would say I wish that you had a complete great experience from beginning to end, but I have to say that I'm glad you ended your trip on a high note.
Yes, absolutely.
I think what everyone, us and the audience, is really wondering, though, Jay.
Yeah.
How was the Hojo checkout process? That's what we're really. How was that thing?
Well, that was because so on Thursday we did check out of Hojo, which, by the way, they do not allow you to park there. You can't even pay to park an extra day. You've got to go take your stuff, put it in your car, and take it to Disney. which is okay. I mean, here's the problem, right? The Anaheim area, like a lot of areas in greater Los Angeles right now, it is not exactly pristine, like super safe.
Mhm.
Is the Disney bubble safe? Yes, but like there's a lot of riffraff on
To
the
get to
streets
that
in
bubble,
Anaheim.
to get to that bubble, it's like,
Yes.
yeah.
Even the resort
Yes.
area is a little. Oh, it's
Correct.
declining by degrees a little bit. Yeah.
Correct. This is a California problem. It's not just a California problem. Here in Colorado, our car thievery, whatever you call that.
Burglary.
Yeah, is off the charts high. And so you do have to be careful. Like the one thing I was worried about is like I'd rather park in a Disney lot because like the chances that someone's gonna take my catalytic converter in a Disney lot is actually lower than in the Hojo parking lot. You know what I mean? Like
much lower.
Much lower.
So just something for people to think about. Like you guys said, maybe like Dre said, stay farther away and just plan to park at the parks. It's probably safer overall.
Yeah.
So on Thursday we checked out. The checkout process was fine. It was their TV did not allow me to check out. I'm glad you asked me because I wouldn't have thought to say this. The TV checkout was not working, so I did have to call them at the front desk. And I am a millennial. I don't like calling people. So I'm barely a millennial, but I'm an elder millennial. But yeah, so I had to call them. They checked me out. No problem. It was fine. Got over to DCA again. Had a very smooth experience. Ooh, had Lamplight Lounge. Scored Lamplight Lounge.
Yes.
Reservations.
The best.
If you can do Lamplight Lounge, if you can schedule Lamplight Lounge, the food is great. The drinks are great. And the environment is one of the best environments. I talked about Craftsman Bar. Lamplight is the music they have. I wish I had on a soundtrack because the music in Lamplight Lounge is out of this world good.
I have to actually say the last time Dre and I, with our friend Casual, we ate at Lamplight, and I thought nothing can top sitting outside watching World of Color, but even not to that degree, which if there's any best experience you could ever get, Jay, to watch World of Color, try to nab a reservation later on for Lamplight Lounge and get an outdoor seat because you're right on the water. Despite of which World of Color you're watching, I still think it would be a great experience. But even indoors, that we got this very unique table that it was like a clear glass, and inside the table was like every type of toy car imaginable from Disney Pixar's cars. Yeah, and it was like the die-cast cars that you could buy at like Walmart or what have you. They had like the whole collection, and it was basically our whole entire table.
It's
awesome.
It's so weird because Pixar Pier, a lot of people would say, not the greatest land, right? Not awesome. But when you're in Lamplight, it is freaking perfect. It's something about that place and overlooking that. It is perfect.
The thing that's beautiful about Lamplight is that it kind of takes a page out of 1901 in Carthay, right? 1901 is very much modeled after Walt and his 9 old men, the artists behind the scenes.
Right.
And Lamplight's very much the same thing. It celebrates right, exactly. The Pixar equivalent where they're celebrating the animators and the artists, and it works really, really well. It just goes to show you when they want to do that, when they want to do it right, because it's a bar, so they're making a lot of money, so they made sure that thing was awesome, right? When they want to do it, they can do it right. And I wish they would have extended that through the whole land.
And it even looks like when you enter in through Lamplight Lounge, if you look at the walls, it resembles the inside of Pixar. Like if you were to walk inside the Pixar animation studios, like they designed it for it to look like as if you're walking into one of the rooms.
Yeah. It's supposed to be like Pixar animators hangout, you know, and so you got these kind of like in references and so forth, but in the perfect way though.
But Jay, I have to ask you, did you get the lobster nachos?
I did not. No, I was being more on diet this time. And I got something else that was recommended to me by the servers. I said, is this any good? They said, yeah, it's awesome. And then 2 other servers said, oh, you got that? That's amazing. And it's the pork chop. So it's a limited time offer, but they have it right now. It is a pork chop. It's a little spicy. The way that they seasoned it is a little spicy, but it was phenomenal. I loved it. So yeah, I tried to eat a little bit more.
That's what that's what casual got, right, George?
Casual got the pork chop.
Got
Yeah.
the pork chop. Heard it was very, very
Man,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
But
amazing.
the next time, if you can get another reservation for Lamplight and it's on your cheat day, try the lobster nachos.
Oh, I've had them. I used to get them as a
nice,
I used to get them back at the Cove Bar. I would get them too when they had them at the Cove Bar. I love the lobster. I considered cheating again, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to overdo it. This is day 4. I don't want to like find myself having to go back to the room I didn't have a room anymore, so I just had to lay down somewhere on a bench
or the or the bao buns.
Oh,
Yeah,
those are good too.
Oh, you
the
have
bao.
to. Yeah.
Oh
man.
Oh my god,
Oh,
this is
awesome.
ridiculous.
Awesome.
Like everything on the menu, he just
Yeah, there's
so
not
good.
one thing that I could
Roll the
say that
dice.
was on that menu
Yeah.
that was bad. It was all equally satisfying.
Yeah.
You can
It's
randomly
all-
select and find something really good, even if it's like, oh well, I don't know, is that good? No, it's gonna be good, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And how
It's very good.
Dre and I do it, because Lord knows how many reservations the two of us had at Lamplight. We do it because he's dining with an Italian here, so we do it family style. So we buy like one of each thing, and we
Right.
just split it.
Split
Perfect.
it all. We do it
Awesome.
right.
That's awesome.
By the way, one other thing about Lamplight Lounge that is, again, it's got a mid-century modern feel. The music is Pixar inspired, but with mid-century modern tones to it. And one of the things I just want to point out, a detail that I think is just amazing, is that one side of the restaurant is one big long bench seat, but
Yes.
each one of the benches is curved, so it's like it just creates a little bit of separation between the next party, and that design element is just amazing. Like the little things you can see in there, they really did a great job there, and I can't say enough good things about it. I did have one other cheat that I did do. I think it was actually on Tuesday, not Thursday, but I did have I got a mini sundae from, you get to create it yourself because they don't sell it on the menu, but from Ghirardelli. You can just ask for one scoop and then create a little sundae. And I used to love Ghirardelli. It was not as good as I remember it. I don't know if that's because I'm a little bit it may be that I'm less sensitive, or I'm not as addicted to sugar being on the diet that I'm on now, so like I don't get a fix from it, but it wasn't as good as I remember it being.
It's good that you at least that you went in there, because now they're retheming the whole Pacific Wharf to Big Hero 6 San Francisco, so we don't even know the status of Ghirardelli, if it's even going to be there.
It's gonna be there.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. You're
It's a profitable location for Garrett. But I'll stand on that. It's good.
There you go.
I mean, they do have all of the San Francisco stuff already there too. I mean, like the whole the whole backdrop up top is obviously not the San Fran Tokyo or however you say it, but it's the but they do at least have some of those elements. So maybe they'll just retheme it a little bit. But what else did we do that day that I should tell you guys about? There was we did get dinner reservations at the Carthay Circle Lounge. That is another location that when it first came out, it was phenomenal. We did have a great server who was very funny. He made some jokes about like if you want to get the duck, and he did like a Donald impersonation, and then it's like, don't worry, it's not Donald, you know. So you know, he was a character. Yeah, he was good. And but it was expensive. I did get the Scotch Mist, which is one of my favorite drinks on property. It's Walt's favorite. It's a Scotch with crushed ice and a twist of lemon. I tried ordering the Scotch Mist one time at Hollywood Studios Brown Derby, and they didn't know what it was. And I went, that's not only is that Walt's drink,
that's sacrilege.
Yeah, because the server's like, yeah, the bartender didn't even know what it was. I'm like, the bartender doesn't have Google to save himself the embarrassment.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was years ago.
Oh,
that
bad.
happened. I was like, ooh, that's not good. But the Scotch Mist was great. My wife loves their dill gin and tonic there, which is phenomenal. So she got that. And then I didn't. That was my cheat. That drink was my cheat. So I ate salmon, which was, I would say, good, but a little bit overpriced. And then we did a few other rides, a few other small rides, and then that's when we went to see World of Color 1. I hate to kind of end on a negative, but like World of Color 1, I saw Casual say that it was garbage, which is strong words for Casual on Twitter, right? Like he doesn't normally say that level of like intensity.
He'll break it down, but he won't. He's not.
Yeah,
he's not the hot take guy.
No, he's not a hot take guy at all. And so I'd seen that and I went like, okay, so I had low expectations going in. Here's the problem with World of Color 1. Have you guys all seen it?
No, I've seen it on YouTube.
Not in person.
Okay. It doesn't know what it wants to be.
Yeah.
It sort of wants to be 100 years of Walt, and it starts with one guy, and one guy starts it. But then they go off on all of these tangents of like, there's sort of like this remember who you are kind of tangent, and then there's an Avengers tangent, and some of those tangents are great. The Avengers portals scene, when they play it on the screens and they do like some of the effects around it, it hits like it you go like, yeah, that's cool, right? but a lot of the rest of the show is very disjointed, and so then they throw in Walt as like almost like a it's almost like a kicker to be like, yeah, like Walt did all this stuff. But I would tell you that it's not much of an homage to Walt. Like a lot of the stuff that they play in that show is more about like the newer properties that they've done. Some of the properties that I even thought to myself, like, why highlight that property at all? Unlike Wondrous Journeys, where they're hitting all the best points of every movie that they do. This one really felt like, it just feels like a giant mishmash of things that are mostly misses with a few hits.
Now, in person, how did they utilize the fountains? Because I know a lot of people were complaining about the notion that they have these gorgeous, beautiful fountains that they utilized for the original World of Color, but they kind of didn't use them to their full capability for this show. Is that true?
Well, my take would be this. The fountains are used to their full capability, but the focus is no longer the fountains. It used to be that the focus was the fountains, and then they put up the water screens, and the focus was still the fountains, but the water screens were good segues between things. Mm-hmm. They had a really cool effect at one point in time with the black pearl coming through, like when they would do the fire, the fire would flare up. Now the fountains seem like complete background noise to what you're seeing on the screen, and it actually is kind of annoying because they pack a lot of people in there, and it's really hard to see over people to see all of the screens, and so the experience is a little bit diminished because the screens are more important. But I wouldn't say that the fountains are weak. It's just that they're not trying to draw my feeling was the attention was supposed to be on the screens, not on the fountains as much, which is, again, feels disjointed. It doesn't really feel like the original intent of that kind of showpiece. So I would say World of Color 1 is a huge skip. I would have rather like literally had a history of World of Color on ABC or whatever channel it was on back in the day, and have like all of the different like Walt walking through the attractions and like showing some of the attractions and doing. I think that would have been cool. Much cooler than what we got with this one. There was even some of the choices that they made of like which properties they highlighted. I was like, there's a really cool way to highlight that property, and you picked the wrong song from that property. It should have been this other song. So it's weird.
Jay, Dre and Theme Park Wizard, they did a fantastic interview with Christopher Lenertz, the songwriter, composer for Wondrous Journeys.
Yes.
And everything you're saying about what's wrong with World of Color 1, Lenertz and his team, they addressed it
for Wondrous Journeys.
What properties to pick? Lenertz was even telling Dre and Wizard, like, we understand that like not everyone's going to be a Moana fan. Not everyone is like young enough. Maybe there's going to be fans who maybe saw Sleeping Beauty in theaters that are going to want to have that on there. And there's going to be fans that maybe, hey, they're 90s kids, right? They're going to want that Lion King or whatever. They in all those meetings, he was talking about how that was front and center with their decision-making process. It's clear that World of Color 1, they didn't have those meetings.
And it wasn't even just choosing like the songs or which films to highlight, but like which parts to highlight, which characters to highlight, which songs to highlight.
Yeah.
They added enhanced emphasis on it. And it's so funny because Dusty actually was the guy that I first heard like, oh, I don't like World of Color 1. Wondrous Journeys is like the antithesis of World of Color 1. It's like it's everything that World of Color 1 would want to be. And I was like, that's very interesting. But now going into more depth about these shows and who actually did Wondrous Journeys, OG is completely right. It's like all your complaints were top of mind for one crew,
right?
Not so much for the next.
It almost makes me wonder if the Wondrous Journeys was finished first, and then they only got the leftovers or something, right? Like, because it's like, what happened? Like, but also like, notice with Wondrous Journeys, storytelling has a format to it. Storytelling says you start out in a place, you go into the depths of who you're trying to be, and then you rise up out of that place. And those are the compelling stories that, like, almost every story takes you along that journey. And Wondrous Journeys does that extraordinarily well. It shows the characters when they're strong, and then we remember them, and then all of a sudden they're weak and they're struggling, and then it brings all of that back up. And then you get the really cool moment where Pooh does come on and say, like, well, can we just do this all over again? And then it's like, no, because we have a whole new 100 years coming, right? Like
right.
The way that story is weaved through, World of Color 1 does not have that. World of Color 1 actually is more like experiencing a trailer, where Disney said, like, here's a trailer, here's a sizzle reel of all the things that we've done, but not the coolest things that we've done. Now, see, Avengers worked because Avengers was the coolest thing that we've seen, in one of the coolest things we've seen in the MCU portal scene. But like, even with Moana, like the Moana segment was more about the grandmother telling Moana to remember who she was, but it was not the I'm setting forth, I'm going out. But the theme of that whole show is what? It starts with one person. So it's not like, again, it's not the person starting the journey. It's like, well, what's happening here? I think they were trying to go into that, like the conflict arc where you'd say, like, okay, now these characters are in conflict, but it just misses the mark, and it just hits it's like a weird sizzle reel. That's the best way I could describe it.
And that's been the issue with a lot of these like secondary World of Color kind of shows, like even the holiday stuff. That's a great way of putting it, Jay. They all feel like sizzle reels to me, you know. They don't. Hey, they got to get Christopher Nurse on that thing, and then they'll fix it up real good. You know,
they do, but more like, you know, more emphasis on the actual fountains themselves. Like, that's the real showpiece. That's what kind of brings it all together. Right. You can have a clip show real easily. Don't let it feel like a clip show. Feel like something that you can only experience here, and not in Vegas or something.
Yeah. Right. You want this sense of like a rising action, right? Like you want this sense of like there's conflict, and now look at Mickey and Minnie's. The day is gonna go great. Whoops, the day is going wrong. Whoa, the day is out of control. And then at the end, but we made our way back. We recovered. We got back to normalcy. Look at even Indiana Jones. You got to go that way. You looked into the eyes of Mara. Well, you're going the wrong way, Buster. And then he's got to reel you back in and get you to the place you want to go. The way that Disney incorporates storytelling into their experiences matters as it relates to your sense of accomplishment, your sense of wonder, your sense of thrill. All of those things go into the creation of these things. That's why it's not an amusement park. It's why it's a theme park plus storytelling added on top of it. And Disney is phenomenal at that. So unfortunately, because they're phenomenal at it, when they're not so good at it, it's very easy to pick up on it, because you go, oh, they didn't really nail that.
It's interesting because when World of Color was initially put in, I want to say 2011, 2010, around there, right? It was a new format, and it did really blow people away. People were like, ooh, this is really, really cool. Years later, Universal would add their own World of Color type show to, I believe, Universal Studios Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And people were like, ooh, that didn't work so hot, you know, because it played out like a sizzle reel. It didn't play out like a story. To you know, have it, you know, go backwards in some way and not learn from World of Color and build on it, but you know, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a bummer. So
yeah. Well,
I can give you guys just to wrap up. Should I give you some of my recommendations of what people should think about?
absolutely,
Sure.
absolutely.
Cool. So here's just some things that I would do. I would go with Dre's advice, and I would go with a hotel that's further away. Maybe get a little bit of a nicer place. And I would just say, just take your car and drive in. You're gonna pay $30 to park, but guess what? The Hojo charged me $20 to park. So it was
See,
like,
there you go.
so you're gonna get it either way. So that's how it goes. I highly recommend Genie Plus if you're a vacationer. It is really phenomenal. I do complain. I have complained about being on my phone all the time. But as an experienced, Genie Plus feels like it's done pretty well. There are a few like things that I would suggest they do a little bit differently, but overall phenomenal. I would tell you that Rise and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway are both must-dos. So if you can, like, figure out a way to get on those rides, if you have to pay for them, we didn't have to pay for them. We were against paying for them with all of the other things we were paying for. So, but I think that those are great. You guys said this, and we talked about it a little bit. But personally speaking, I wasted way too much time in the line for Radiator Springs Racers, and quite frankly, I don't think they should be charging people to ride it. I think that, OG, your comment about there being not enough e-ticket rides is why that line is so long, and it's what's enabling them to charge. But just ride single rider. Like, just go in single rider, get it done that way. Bengal Barbecue and Lamplight Lounge were both fantastic, and so please consider getting the grilled cheese combo with the tomato soup from Dolly Holiday, because that stuff was absolutely through the roof awesome. Craftsman Bar to me is still a fantastic gem that gets overlooked, but like Dre said, a lot more people are figuring it out. So by the time you hear me say this, maybe it's not the best spot anymore. Maybe try Hearthstone Lounge or something instead. And I would just say last, it is still really challenging to get dinner reservations anywhere. Blue Bayou is almost impossible. Carthay Circle is almost impossible. And the thing that bums me out about that quite a bit is that for someone like me, who's now only going to go like maybe like this trip and then maybe one other trip this year, if I get lucky to do it, is that like your ability to grab one of those reservations is now very, very limited.
Yeah.
And Disney's not really doing a lot there. I mean, like, you can go check constantly, but again, who has the time to check constantly if reservations are available? Again, you'd be on your phone. Now you're at home on your phone, not even at Disneyland. You're on your phone.
Yes.
So
well, now there are services that you can pay where they'll check for you, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, this is so stupid. Like,
you have to pay for someone to get a reservation so you could pay for your own food. So it's like you're paying before you even step foot in the restaurant. It's like,
it's ridiculous.
Yep, exactly. It's completely ridiculous. And again, there's these little things. Like, my dad said this to me because they had been to Disneyland a few, and my dad is not. What's the easiest way of saying this? He's not in need of any money. Okay, my dad's good to go. But he said to me, he goes, "It really feels like the only way to have a really great experience at Disneyland is to be rich. And that feels awkward. My dad can afford that experience if he wants it. But the fact that he's saying it feels awkward to me, that like the upper echelon gets an experience that the other people just aren't able to have.
Yeah.
I think that was happening with Iger before the pandemic. It really solidified with Chapek during and after the pandemic. And it's something that they're going to need to figure out, because it doesn't make you want to go back.
they're going to have to figure a way to do more, because it's nickel and diming. And Dre has mentioned this many times. It's the 15 transactions on your debit card that, it makes you feel bad. If they would just do, like, even if they charge you an extra $50 for the ticket up front, and then they eliminate the nickel and diming on your trip, I think that would even be better.
Absolutely.
And there's always been kind of a haves and has-nots, first class steerage kind of thing.
Magic
happening.
Morning.
Magic Morning, but like Club 33, for example, right? There were, those people who were up there, and there was people who were down here, but you didn't really see
And those people get to
it.
drink. Those people get to drink in the parks.
Those people get an experience,
If
right?
you're
But you
rich,
didn't really
you get to
see it,
drink.
and it wasn't pervasive, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm missing out. A lot of people just didn't even know it was there. When you saw like Tomorrowland cabanas and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah, when they throw it in your face and they showcase it, it's like, well, these people can do it because they have a extra bank account, but I can't not because I'm lazy at it, but it's just I'm not as fortunate as some people. It's like, so in order for me to have an experience at Disneyland, I have to be making 6 figures a year.
Yeah, it's the paying for individual attractions. It's the Galaxy's Edge, right? You want to have a premium experience? Well,
because
you
honestly,
that
I will be upfront. You guys know me. I go balls to the wall with everything, and I'm going to be quite honest. I'm not a well-to-do person. I go at times paycheck to paycheck, and what I have to do so I can have elaborate vacations at Disney is I sacrifice everything else. Everything in my day-to-day life. Like, people would spend $2,000 to go to a 2-hour concert. And if that's what they want to do, that's perfectly up to them. But me, I'd rather save my money and do a 2-week stay at Walt Disney World for that price.
Right.
Yeah, we give up everything.
Yeah.
To go. And then sometimes it's still not enough. It's
it isn't. And it's like, there's times I tell Jess and Josh, you could eat next week. We're going to Disney.
Right. You're on the intermittent fasting diet right now, Josh.
But overall, I'll just conclude by saying I had a really phenomenal time. I was really worried about it because of the way it started. But after that, it was really fantastic. And the last experience I'd had was at Walt Disney World, going to Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom, and I still think that I haven't been to Nintendo World, but just comparing the two, I still think Disney has the best product out there, and so it doesn't surprise me that they want a nickel and dime, but that does take away from it a little bit. So I hope that they find a way to come back in and say, let's deliver the experience, let's make our money, let's pay our cast members, and let's really have something that people are clamoring for, that they'll keep coming back to. So we'll see. But I had a really great time. So I can't. All of my little minor complaints are just mostly minor complaints, and I hope that they get.
And mostly with Howard Johnson.
Yeah, right. The Hojo.
Well,
I don't know, guys.
I see this as an absolute win.
There you go.
That's right. Yeah, the one thing my main complaint about Disney is their operations, and I get it. You're exited a pandemic, I get it, but the technology, and the way that cast members are being onboarded and treated.
Yeah.
Okay, really quick story to tell you what the cast member experience used to be like.
Sure.
My wife and I were going from somewhere off property, and we were going to we were trying to get to Disneyland, and it was going to be like a 2-mile walk. And one of the cast members who was off duty, he was a lifeguard at one of the hotels. He realized that we were going to have this really long walk ahead of us. He was in his personal vehicle, pulled over to the side of the road, and was like, "Do you guys want to ride? Because it's kind of a long walk." And I was like, and we were like, it's so weird to get in the car with this random person, but like, that's the level of service mindedness that a cast member just had inherently in them. This guy did not have to do this. This guy was off duty. He did not have to take me to somewhere else, but like he did. And I think it's training. It is feeling good about where you work. It's feeling like you're being taken care of where you work, where you have the margin to do something like that. Now, is that guy probably just a really good human being? Probably, but to me, that's the difference. Is like, I can't even imagine. Now, I will say that my friend that works there is like that. He still has that mentality because he was long pre-pandemic. He was as a cast member, so he still has that mentality. But I butt up against a lot of people who I feel like, yeah, you are kind of new to this, and maybe you're not getting treated the way you need to. And I feel sympathetic towards them, but I also think that it makes me think, well, Disney C-suite, maybe you need to give up a little bit of your pay to be able to spread this wealth around at the bottom. Because when Walt opened these parks, a ticket taker was a middle class earner, and now probably not a middle class earner, right? Like we're talking about closer to the bottom of that. So I just hope that Disney will make some wise choices. It doesn't sound like they're doing that with Florida right now, but maybe they'll come around and figure out they need to offer people more and take care of them. So we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, it's interesting. They gotta fix that. They gotta fix that. The Florida thing's very frustrating. That come on, it's wild. It's wild.
But I'm sorry it took so long telling you guys all this. This was really fun. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you guys about this, and I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, Jay. Talking parks with you, talking your experience. It sounds like you had a really good time. The Hojo thing with the first day was what you guys went through it, but I'm glad that the rest of the trip really paid off. So I wanted to just thank you for sharing your experience, and hey, we'll have you back on and we'll talk some parks again soon. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
And stay tuned for our episode on Up with George for sure, because we'll be talking about Up pretty soon.
Awesome. So again, Jay Sherer, he's got a show here on OG 55, the Story Geeks. It's phenomenal. The last show we did was a real deep dive into Encanto with this guy right here, George, and Modern Mouse. Phenomenal time. Next one will be about Up. Really good stuff. But Jay, if you can let everybody home know where they can find you on like social media and what have you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Jay Sherer. You can see it right here. And I'm on Facebook. We do have a How Stories Work Facebook group. So if you are like interested in writing or interested in how stories actually function and how to do them well, you can join the Facebook group too. And there's also an Instagram account, and sometimes I post shorts to the Instagram account, so you can check that out as well. I think that's storytelling, or no, that's How Stories Work as well. It's all one word, How Stories Work on Instagram. And you can try to friend me on Instagram on my personal account, but I probably won't friend you because it's blocked. So if I've interacted with you before, then I'll for sure accept. But yeah, thanks guys for having me on. Absolute pleasure. Would have loved to have this conversation even if we weren't recording it. So it was like talking Disney with you guys. Yes.
Likewise. It was a lot of fun. Dr. Dre. Oh, hold on 1 sec. Here we go. There we go. If you can let everybody know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Hey, I do appreciate it, sir. You can go ahead and best place to find me is going to be at Vash Guy on Twitter. It's right down there. Just go ahead and type it in. It should pop up. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be in the channel you're watching right now with all of these fine lads before me on Orange Grove 55. And you can find my show there, Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juice and news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. I'll leave you with this quote, fellas. I was trying to find it. That's why I was down my phone a little bit. I do apologize, but I thought this was great. This is by Walt Disney, one of the last things he ever said about the Disney park experience. He said, I think by this time, my staff, my young group of executives, and everyone else are convinced that Walt is right, that quality will win out. And so I think they're going to stay with that policy because it's proved that it's a good business policy. Give the people everything they can give them, keep the place as clean as you can keep it friendly, make it a real fun place to be. I think they're convinced, and I think they'll hang on if, as you say, well, after Disney. So I hopefully they can get back a little bit. I think they're making strides. I think they're, realizing, ooh, maybe we should be a little bit more value-oriented. Ooh, maybe we should correct these cast member problems. It's going to be a process. But
if they just completely fucked up and now they have realized it and they have to...
Well, hey, sometimes you have to fall in order to pick yourself back up again.
Yeah, and considering the long history, I mean, considering how long this thing has been going on, like George says, they mess up, they rebound, but for
they
the
find
most
a way.
Part,
they find a way. They find a way. I can't,
right?
Like no matter how much hardships they go through, even like with watching the Imagineering story, a lot of the stories that a lot of people don't know, but behind the scenes of the hell and back that the company had went through of almost being divided and split up and sold off to different companies. A lot of people don't know that story, but it's like this company is almost well, it is immortal because it's just going to keep on going, but yet it has many lives that it bounces back. And I feel like that we're on the downslope right now, as it happened many years ago. But when there, as OG mentioned, as soon as it goes down, it'll just go right back up.
Yeah.
I
So
think we're getting there. George, tell the fine people where they can find you at home.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. If you want to interact with me, you could do so on Twitter at Disney George. You could check out a new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
there we go.
It's been an honor serving with you all.
There we go. A little Optimus Prime to close it out. I don't know why. Just felt right.
That's perfect.
But I want to thank Jay again. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. George, Vast Guy, thank you all for joining today. This is a really, really good show. Comment down below with everything we talked about today. Jay's experience, the good, the bad, your experiences with Genie Plus, mobile ordering, being on your phone, all that stuff. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching OG 55. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful